Dr. Elena Gates submitting transition 2-1 free aboard the lander spacecraft Aether. We are entering Mars's atmosphere and will arrive at our coordinates within the hour. Everybody quiet. I'm recording. Sorry, Houston. All of us aboard the Aether are extremely excited. For the scientists, it is our first step within the Mars's way station designated Tartarus. Our returning armed guard tells us that Tartarus and its citizens are the future, and we cannot wait to see it. Many of us have been preparing for this trip since the abandoned way station was discovered 10 years ago. We have been reading and studying all archaeological notes and transmissions submitted from Tartarus in the last few years.
We're breaking atmosphere gates. The boys in the cockpit are having trouble reaching anyone from flight control. They want you up front when we reach the pit. The other eggheads are starting to crack.
Bishop, I don't think it's an appropriate time to call humanity's first colonization out of Earth's atmosphere a pit. And scientists are not eggheads, we're doctors. Can you not handle it? These transmissions are required by Houston per your contract and mine. They're meant to keep us sane and level-headed while in space.
Whatever you say, Doc. Grab the portable receiver and get up front. Spread that sanity to the other eggheads.
Houston, transmission 2-1 free will continue after a brief delay. This is Dr. Elena Gates, EN8965, signing off. This is Dr. Elena Gates of the landing ship Aether. We are seconds away from entering Mars's atmosphere and...
Shut that off, Gates!
We have to report this to Houston. Houston, Tartarus is dark. Officer Lawrence Bishop assumes a power failure. We believe that's why the pilots cannot reach flight control. We are attempting to land manually and will report back and...
God damn it, Gates, shut that off!
Houston, this is Dr. Gates, reporting from Flight Deck 04 of the Mars Way Station designated Tartarus. We can't find anyone. Bishop and his men are talking about moving deeper into the station. It really is incredible. Under different circumstances, my team and myself would have liked to explore the architecture more. It is exhilarating to imagine that another society of higher-thinking life forms could create something so intricate and self-sustaining on such a dangerous terrain as Mars. I'm curious to know if the archaeologists that have been working here the last 10 years have managed to find an adjusted form of carbon dating. Could beings in space have been monitoring Earth and its evolution from this way station without us knowing?
We have to move, Gates. We gotta get the power back on. No telling when the life support went down. There's over 10,000 people in this station, and who knows how long they've been sucking up all the damn air.
We're moving deeper into Tartarus, Houston. Employee number 8965 signing off. They're gone! Everyone in Tartarus is gone! We followed Bishop and his men all over this damn station and there's no one left! I don't understand it. In the mess hall, there are half-eaten plates, as if they all had just sat down for dinner. There's even showers still running in the barracks! In hydroponics, we found planters and trowels scattered across the ground. Like someone just evaporated in the middle of their work. Bishop can't explain it, and his men expect us to. Because we're the eggheads, right? They left us here in the lab while they search for the power grid. Bishop hopes that they'll find survivors. Survivors? Survivors of what? I feel like I'm going crazy. This isn't what was supposed to happen. We were supposed to be a part of the greatest discovery in history. But here we are, possibly amidst the remains of humanity's most horrific tragedy.
Gates, do you read me?
Yes. Yes, Bishop. I can hear you. Did you find anyone?
Yeah, Doc. We found someone. I think it's one of the scientists from the labs. He's wearing one of those stupid white coats. We're having a hard time catching him, though.
Catching him? What do you mean?
No, I was hoping you could tell me, Doc. What have your boys found out in all those papers?
We're still working on it. One of the observation rooms here at Echo Free is sealed up, We're trying to figure out how to get it open when the power's back on. It would help if we had some light.
Yeah, well, we're still working on it. The egghead just ran into the electrical room. We'll find the breakers in there and get this place lit up. Just figure out what the hell is going on, would ya?
Yeah, I'm working on it, you piece of shit. Houston, I found some handwritten logs dated from the past few days. It looks like they were recorded by the main scientist charged with monitoring the life form until we arrived. Someone named Dr. Traegyn Mayer, EN6714. Mayer was listing detailed descriptions over the time of the microorganisms designated Amira. And... Jesus. Oh my god. He started performing rogue experiments. No wonder these are written logs. He couldn't risk recording them.
Gate. My guys caught the survivor. He led us back to the breaker. We're gonna get the power back on. I'll let you know if we get anything from the egghead.
Mayer tried to reanimate Amira's tissue. He and his assistant used Echo Free to perform invasive tests until there was movement. Mayer says Amira started to flourish, but would become inactive at night. They started leaving it under controlled amounts of fluorescence. Its rate of growth increased exponentially until...
We've almost got the power back on, Gates. Tell me you found something. The egghead we caught isn't making a lot of sense. He keeps talking about the lights. We checked his employee number. He's a doc like you. Mayer's the name.
Until Amira showed signs of intelligent life. Mayer and his assistant sealed themselves in the observation chamber. They attempted to make direct contact with the organism found on Mars' surface. Mayer hoped it was a member of the race before, the ones who built Tartarus. He wanted to be the first person to communicate with it, and it... Oh god. Houston, it consumed the assistant's head. It escaped into the ventilation system. Mayer followed its progress until it had consumed every living thing inside the station. They're all dead.
Hang tight, eggheads. Power's almost up.
Amira only moves in the light. It avoids all dark areas and shadows in Tartarus. Mayer fled to the electrical grid. He started switching off the power to areas throughout the station one by one, until the only place Amira could go was Echo 3. I can't really read the last sentence. I think it says...
Don't turn on the lights!
Don't turn on the lights!
Don't fucking turn on the lights!
Good morning, Captain Taylor. My name is Dr. Vance. This is my partner, Dr. Green. We'll be in charge of overseeing your journey to and from the future. Our team has revised and confirmed the security of every aspect of this experiment with time travel. We can guarantee your safety every step of the way. Don't try to talk. Your mask is secured already. Give me a thumbs up if you understand. Great. Now remember your mission. The goal is to take a look at the future, see how bad it is, and figure out what we can do to prevent the imminent socioeconomic collapse of our society. There's a war around the corner, Captain. We can stop it before it happens. You make the first trip, just 1 hour. If everything goes according to plan, you may take your soldiers for a longer mission next time. Understood? Excellent. Anything you'd like to add?
Just my admiration for you, Captain. This first time travel mission can change the fate of our entire planet. You will be a hero, Captain. But, should anything happen to go wrong, please do not hesitate to use the emergency mechanism to return yourself here.
Very well. Shall we begin? Dr. Vance speaking. I want everyone in position. Now, I want all my scientists in the lab. Nobody on the platform.
Checking final reports now. Safety protocols, check. Energy levels, check. Infrastructure in order, check. Time travel software, check. Double check. Auxiliary engines, check. Dr. Vance, we are ready.
God be with you, Captain. Initiate time travel mission. Final test. Captain Taylor, 30 years forward. Now.
Incredible.
Hold the energy levels steady.
He's gone.
He really is.
Did we do it?
Of course we did, Dr. Green. Of course we did. Okay, everyone calm down.
Come on, Vance, live a little. We're making history right here.
Exactly. I want history to know we did everything right. I need everyone back on their stations.
You have nothing to be worried about. We basically invented time travel. We know what we're doing. We have everything under control.
You hesitated, Green. What's going on? What did you see?
It's nothing. I mean, we expected some anomalies, right?
Listen here, turn that. Oh, that's not right. No. Not like this. No.
What? What is this, Vance?
This isn't ours.
What?
The energy signal is coming from the future. It's the captain. He's sending a signal.
Oh my god. It's too soon. He was supposed to last an hour. Must be hell of a time travel emergency.
Green, it's not a message at all. Look at this. The receptors are going crazy.
Is he... Vance? Is the captain... Is he coming back?
He used the emergency mechanism. He's already here. He's here! Attention! Everyone back to their places. Initiate all emergency protocols. For God's sake, keep the energy under control, or it will blow us all out.
Vance, this is too much. The portal hasn't even cooled off. It can't stand to receive a whole person coming through.
I don't care. We'll make it. We have to make it. We didn't make it this far for everything to collapse now, Green.
Fuck.
Too bad?
Yes, but I think we can make it. Give us a little more energy, Vance, and we'll bring that soldier home.
You got it. Turning on auxiliary engines. Now.
God! Did we make it? Is he... Well, he's here. I can see him, but...
The computer is picking up a heartbeat. Yes, he's alive. We should go see him. Just us, Green. Keep everyone locked in the lab while we figure out what went wrong. Captain Taylor, can you hear us?
He seems unconscious, Vance. This looks bad.
It's not a problem as long as only you and I know about it. Come on, let's get closer. Don't look at me like that. Are you scared? Please, Green. What happened to we invented time travel? We have nothing to worry about. This could have been just a glitch. Maybe he's just passed out and accidentally activated the, Ah! What the? Jesus Christ. What happened to him?
Oh my god, are you seeing this? How is he alive?
What happened to him? His leg? His entire leg? Something tore his leg off his body.
I don't like this, Vance. I don't like this at all. Look at these scratches. His clothes were all torn up. Blood. Everywhere. Oh my god. I'm gonna throw up. I feel sick. Look. He's dripping blood all over. Oh my god.
He was there only minutes. Just minutes. What could have done this much damage?
Vance? There's something wrong.
You think?
I mean, with his face. I mean, he looks just dead. Look at this expression of utter terror on his face. Oh man, I get chills just looking at him. This man is dead, Vance.
Just make sure. Check his vitals. Check everything you can. I'm taking his equipment.
Seriously? Right now? There's a dead man on our platform and you're worried about the time traveler equipment.
Shut up. This device right here was recording the entire time, you know. This can help us understand what happened to the captain.
Alright, turn it on.
Okay, here it goes.
That's Captain Taylor. He made it. He was in the future.
Shh, listen. He wasn't alone.
What on earth could have made him scream like that?
Well, it ripped his leg clean off. Take a look. I can't think of any animal that could do that so quickly. It feels like he was there just a minute. And the time travel mechanism should have...
Hey, look! His leg!
Oh my God! What is that? What is that?
This mission started out like any other. At the time, I was staying at home, closer to the beach than the mountains where most of my jobs took place. I loved my house, but I couldn't wait to get back to work. There was nothing in the world that compared to the rush, the adrenaline of being out there, risking my life, fighting in the name of the entire planet, being a hero. My job was my life, and I had treasured my profession since I was a kid, since the first time I heard that being an alien hunter was a real thing. Everything started a couple of years before I was born. An alien invasion, just like humanity had dreamed of and feared for so many years. It was a catastrophe, and changed our history forever, but we, as resilient humans we are, came out victorious in the end. But that wasn't the end. Not at all. In a matter of months, a much smaller attack happened, and a year later, an asteroid that crashed on our planet carried living creatures within. It was as if that first invasion broke through an invisible wall, and now we couldn't stop these unwanted visits from happening. Sometimes, in asteroids or ships crashing on our planet, these were accidents. The aliens are confused, helpless, and occasionally they didn't even survive the atmosphere of our planet and would die almost instantly. Still, some incidents turned violent. Not necessarily full-blown invasions, but a beast released on an unfamiliar territory will easily turn savage, desperate to satiate hunger, thirst, or simply react aggressively to cope with the terror of the new environment. That's where people like me come in. Since that first attempt of an alien invasion, the military of every country in the world started preparing special units in case of another extraterrestrial threat. When I was a kid, these were really overwhelming, even theatrical groups that appeared to be getting ready for a war at the end of the world. However, as time wore on, technology improved at a breakneck pace, and we grew more knowledgeable about these menaces. The specialized units started requiring fewer people and greater weapons. Alien hunters became unique, rare, and highly tactical. They were real heroes, and for children everywhere, that was the dream job. At least it was for me. I had to work harder than most people can even imagine, but I've made it. Now I'm one of the best alien hunters on the West Coast. For that exact reason, more often than not, I didn't even need a team. When I got the call for this job, I immediately jumped into action. I prepared an all-terrain military vehicle, filled it to the brim with all the weapons I could possibly need, and, on the way to the coordinates on the mountains, I listened to the friendly voice of the AI assistant on my watch that replayed the details of my mission for me.
Asteroid 16B28 identified at 0700 hours of the present day. Estimated time for contact with the Earth's surface around 1600 hours. An approximate of 6 heartbeats detected. Official orders indicate neutralize and capture if possible. Eradicate if necessary. Good luck, Agent Eric Welch. Let us know if there's anything else you need.
A little before the estimated time, I saw the asteroid crash somewhere in the mountains. It was a little odd. Not just that it had arrived earlier than expected, but having so little time to prepare beforehand. At this point, most asteroids are detected days in advance. But I tried not to complain too much, and only moved faster. It wasn't until the moment I arrived at the perimeter and parked my vehicle that I noticed this was not going to be just another job. First, the mountain was on fire. It was normal for a collision to ignite fires, of course, but this was much, much worse. Maybe one of the minerals in the rock from space reacted badly against the Earth's atmosphere. I started coughing and spoke into my communication device. Attention! Agent Welch here. I will require assistance from the fire department urgently.
Understood.
The artificial assistant immediately replied.
Do you need reinforcements from the Hunters Unit, Agent Welch?
No thanks. I have that part under control, I replied quickly and ended the message at the same time I picked up a weapon and shot. There had been yellow, glowing eyes watching me from the flames among the trees far away from me, but moving closer and closer until I could hear it screeching and whining and getting ready to attack. Finally, the creature jumped towards me, but I was quick enough to shoot. An especially strong, metal-reinforced net shoots out from my gun and captured the beast in the air. It screamed and screamed and squirmed on the ground while I looked at it. It was awful, but not completely unfamiliar. But this particular type of alien resembled a common monkey, despite the shocking differences in the internal anatomy of their bodies. The spikes, the strength, the outstanding aggression. At least they were relatively small. It was one of my least favorite species so far, but all too familiar. Something close to monkeys could be close to humans, and the last thing I needed was thinking I was hunting something in any way related to my species. I waited for a second longer as the monkey-like beast continued to scream. Then I shot a different weapon, tranquilizing darts this time. It fell asleep within seconds and I started moving again. I set a couple of traps. I chased a few of the aliens and defended myself from others, and I avoided the fire. I got deeper and deeper into the woods of the mountain, coughing here and there because of the nearby smoke. But I trusted my equipment, the fire department, and my training to get me out of there fast enough if necessary. Every few minutes I heard a shrill cry from one of the aliens as they got caught in my traps. And then I spotted one running away from the blaze. I started chasing after it. I felt my heartbeat pick up and I couldn't help but smile. This was one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, but I had the time of my life with it. I ran until my lungs began to burn. I aimed the gun and fired a net that expanded and easily caught the target. I was grinning, satisfied, when I heard one of the monsters screech close to me. And I heard it too late this time. I screamed too when the creature landed on top of my head. I fell to the ground and groaned in pain. The monkey-like beast yelled desperately and tried to claw its way into my brain, but luckily I was wearing a helmet. I hit the alien with the butt of my gun, sending it tumbling to the side. I quickly moved up, aimed, and shot once, twice, 3 times for good measure. The little monster screamed just once. Blood blossomed all around it, and it fell limp and lifelessly to the ground. I was left panting, observing the rapidly decomposing body. It melted quickly as if it was boiling, and the smell was awful enough to make me retreat. When I was able to catch my breath, I took off my helmet and noted the scratches on its surface, tearing off the paint. A promise to tear out my brain if I wasn't more careful the next time. My heartbeat didn't have time to return to normal before I was startled again, but this time it was different. It was worse. I heard a feral scream coming from higher up the mountain, and I cursed my luck. That sound was much deeper than the higher-pitched yells of the little guys I'd been dealing with. I remembered the description of my mission. Approximately 6 heartbeats. That didn't necessarily tell me anything about the size of the threat. I had no option but to take a deep breath, regain my composure, and get back to work. I double-checked all the weapons I had on me and started moving uphill. Naturally, I began to worry. Oh, my confidence didn't waver, not after so many years of fighting against the most unexpected, dangerous and aggressive aliens this world has ever seen. I doubted there could be any worse than any monster I'd already faced. Creatures that defied our laws of physics and all reason. Aliens as small as mosquitoes, or as big as grizzly bears. I fought against claws, horns, fangs, tentacles, and venom. I wasn't scared of anything. On my way to the top of the mountain, I came across another one of the small aliens and I easily caught it, but then immediately heard one more screeching nearby. I stood still for a moment, waiting for the attack, my heart thumping inside my chest. But nothing came. I decided to move forward, more cautiously this time. I had to stay hyper-vigilant. What I found took my breath away. The alien wasn't about to attack me. It was wounded. It was lying on the damp forest earth, in a small puddle of its own greasy orange blood, already starting to boil, melting away the wounded body, but not quick enough to kill the agonized beast. It gave me enough time to investigate, which only made matters worse. The wound on the side of the extraterrestrial animal's torso looked like a bite, like something had just grabbed a bite of the alien monkey and left it there to die. But this species didn't usually attack each other, and that bite looks much smaller than something from a wolf or anything from these mountains big enough to overpower one of these monsters. I was unsettled, but I'm still convinced I'm stronger and better prepared than any alien hoping to attack me. And that's when I heard it. The explosion. It was so unexpected in so many ways that it made me jump in place, and then I immediately ran in the direction it came from. My mind scrambled to remember every case when the materials of the asteroid or the substances within reacted explosively when in contact with stuff from this planet. It wasn't completely unusual, but that was not what I was focused on. An explosion like that could only mean one thing, and the fire around us, it finally made sense. It was a fuel leak. The thing that crashed here today wasn't an asteroid. It was a ship. I cursed under my breath. The inconsistencies in the case finally made sense, but I hated that I had received flawed information. Still, it wouldn't be the first time I faced a single ship by myself, and I needed to know more. Despite getting a little closer to the forest fire, I reached the spot where the spaceship crashed. When I was close enough, I slowed down and moved more cautiously. All my senses were focused. I was alert and ready for a possibly lethal encounter. I double-checked the weapons strapped around my waist and across my torso. I had capture nets, explosive bullets, everything in between for all shapes and sizes. In my hand, I was holding a gun of tranquilizing darts for medium to large species. I was prepared for the worst, but if it was something new, I would be the one to bring it to the laboratories. This monster was mine. I heard footsteps nearby and turned hastily. There it was, coming at me from the dark, coming through the smoke. A big round head gleaming under the moonlight. I aimed and studied it quickly. about 6 feet tall, 1 head, 4 limbs, shockingly anthropomorphous. I fired a dart, but I could tell from the sound that I didn't pierce its skin. I started stepping back, firing again and again, but all of a sudden, the alien started running towards me, then suddenly leapt in the air. I grunted when the beast knocked me over. The fall took my breath away, and I reached for a different gun, but the monster didn't linger on top of me. It quickly moved away, and I scrambled to my feet, but what I saw next made my blood run cold. The spaceship. At first, I only frowned when I saw it, but upon further inspection I felt my heart skip a beat. Chills ran down my body, and for the first time in years, I was truly worried about what I'd just walked into. That ship. It wasn't alien. It was ours. Part of it looked frozen, and the rear section was badly burnt, but as if the design wasn't familiar enough, I saw the word NASA still visible on the broken hull of the devastated ship. A tragic sight. I didn't have time to think about the possibilities. Movement behind me made me turn around. "What are you?" I yelled. I groaned at my own nerves showing, but I couldn't let that affect my performance. Another shuffling sound, this time from the other side of the ship. "Show yourself! Now!" I ordered as loudly as possible so it wouldn't be so obvious my voice was trembling. I took a deep breath and focused. I let go of the gun I'd reached for and gripped the tranquilizing darts tighter. I had a bad feeling, but I couldn't shoot to kill. I took a deep breath and moved slowly around the ship. I couldn't hear anything else. No movement. This was it. I could shoot. I could shoot and end this right now, but you know the old saying, curiosity killed the cat. Instead of shooting, I switched on the flashlight attachment of the gun. Both of us screamed at the same time. But the actions were very different. I was terrified, and whatever was in front of me was startled like any other beast caught in headlights. This wasn't a person, not anymore. But it certainly wasn't alien. The suit was dirty and torn. The glass of the helmet was cracked, leaving exposed the face of someone that used to be an astronaut. But now he was a feral, infected thing with orange stains around its mouth. Alien blood. Before letting myself try to imagine the circumstances that led to this astronaut's tragic fate, I shot to kill.
What makes a planet? What makes a living, breathing creature? Can they possibly be one and the same? The first ever manned mission on Mars brought Maya Williams and her team to the surface of the planet. They quickly discovered that the true face of Mars was hiding deep in its core. It wasn't happy to see them, nor was it very welcoming. The Dark Cosmos presents Mars is Not the Planet We Thought We Knew. Written by Tiana Petkovska.
Hey creepypasta fans, it's Kira Rhodes, and I'll be your narrator for tonight. Enjoy tonight's sci-fi horror story. Also, if you want to connect and support us, make sure to check out our Discord and Patreon links in the description. And remember, stay cosmic.
Attention, all hands. This is Commander Williams. Prepare for touchdown. Let's finally get this baby on the red planet and see what all the fuss is about.
Commander Williams, I want to express my...
Save it, Professor Phillips. You can express all the gratitude you have in front of the cameras when we get back. Focus on your mission, and make this trip worth all the money and time that we've invested in it.
Always to the point, Maya. Let the man thank you for God's sake.
This is not a commercial airline, Sarah. You do not have to applaud when I make a successful landing. Hearing those words come out of my lips was absolutely surreal. After everything that we've been through, collectively as a species, I didn't expect that we'd actually get here. On the cusp of one of mankind's greatest missions that brought the slightest glimmer of hope in our dire existence, stood little old me, and only 5 others. The first ones to ever step on another planet, not counting the moon. My excitement was burning a hole in my stomach, though I would never show anyone the childish giddiness I felt about being on this mission. Not to be morbid, but I could already see my obituary. Maya Williams, commander of the Ares, head of the first manned mission to Mars, dies at age 97. She was a loving friend, blah blah, all of that other stuff.
Stop being so nonchalant about it.
I hated that Ray knew exactly what I was thinking, and that he always made it clear that he did. That's what made him the perfect co-pilot, I guess. I wish I knew if he was still alive. A matter of moments later, we were successfully grounded on Mars. Whiffs of stress sweat came through my suit, and I could tell Ray could smell it too, because he just kept side-eyeing me. He didn't exactly smell of roses either.
Still don't want that applause?
I prefer some champagne.
Best I can offer is flavored water. I think we only have lemon left.
We can all hear you, Commander.
Sarah, our lovely medical doctor with the bedside manner of a stinging wasp. Just the way I like my friends, dealing a little bit of venom every time they talk to you. Perfect. Crack your knuckles and let's get ready for all that red dust that's gonna end up in our asses.
You're a delight, Maya. Thank you for not killing us.
I said no expressions of gratitude. Besides, there's still time, Sarah. We've only just arrived. 2 minutes in, and we were all as busy as bees around the Ares. Sarah was doing the rounds and checking all of our most vital stats, while Chris was making sure that the engines were cooling off nicely. What our 2 professors, the mission specialists on terraforming, were doing, I had but the slightest idea. However, they made sure that we knew they weren't just lounging around. Every once in a while, Professor Phillips would pop on comms asking this and that, but I let Ray handle him once we touched down on the planet. Aside from babying Professor Phillips, Ray had the task of opening up a comms channel to Earth, so that I could record and send formal messages, then let the rest say hi to their loved ones back on the pale blue dot. At this point, I was scanning the neighboring area of the landing site, and checking if our readings from Earth were correct, and detailed enough before I could send a small team out for the first ever Mars walk. I could tell that Professor Phillips wanted to be the first one out of the hatch. However, as protocol would state, the first foot to touch the surface would have to be either me or Ray. Shit, I really wanted it to be me. How sentiments change once you've been through hell. Now, I wish that neither of us had stepped out of the Ares onto Mars. I should have realized something was wrong from the moment I found out that no robot and no other of our instruments on the planet was sending any of its feedback to the Ares. Communication failure, my ass! In the beginning, however, there were no indications that something was wrong. In fact, all of us were optimistic and relaxed about the Mars walk, to a stupidly high degree. Did we rely on information that we had received from our robots about the surface of the planet beforehand too much? In retrospective, that answer was yes. And to the fact, the moment that I discovered a hidden tunnel just a few miles starboard of the Ares, I had decided that it would be a perfect location to begin our mission. Professor Sheridan was the only one to protest, heading straight to unexplored, underground locations of the planet, fearing possible structural instabilities of the tunnel. We quickly outvoted her, though, with Phillips happy to see the best possible site, where he thought life could begin on Mars. Team A ready?
As ready as we'll ever be, Commander. Pop the hatch, Maya. Let's get this show on the road.
Professor Phillips and Ray were way too excited to begin exploring, unlike Sheridan, who showed a lot of trepidation, and was the only one to take care and follow protocol to the latter. Shame she was among the first ones to go. I blame myself for not taking her reservations into consideration, even if the reason for her demise would, ultimately, not be the structural instability of a bunch of dirt and rock.
One small step. God, Ray, can't you say one original thing in your life? Our bickering will be original when they listen to this recording back on Earth, or any of our recordings. Mouth closed and eyes open. Yes, sir.
Ray was giggling over comms. Sarah rolled her eyes at me because she had insisted that I be the first one to go on the surface with the team. I patted her on the back like I didn't care, but there was too much to be done on board that I couldn't leave Ray in charge of. Chris had informed me that our engines were behaving a little erratic, like they weren't shutting down completely. He needed my help, since I was the only one with an engineering degree, and Ray was first and foremost a soldier. I left Sarah in charge of overseeing our team in the tunnel, while Chris and I finagled the engines into submission.
This isn't the best solution, Maya. We might be able to take off, but I don't know how they'll handle the rest.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Besides, a little rest might do the trick. Just make sure we don't burn through any more fuel. Suddenly, Sarah's voice was heard through comms.
Maya, get your ass back here! Trouble in the tunnels!
Once I heard Sarah panicking, I knew that the trouble she was talking about wasn't just a small hitch. I rushed to the main deck of the Ares, only to find Sarah talking Ray down and convincing him to come back on board.
Ray, there's nothing you can do. Leave them there and get back here immediately.
Sarah saw me come in, turned off the comms, and explained what happened.
There was some kind of accident, and both the professors are dead. Ray isn't making much sense about how it all went down, but he wants to make sure that he's not leaving them alive and hurt down there.
I agree that he should make sure. What the hell, Sarah?
His oxygen is at 2%, barely enough to come back from the entrance. We'll lose him too.
Fuck! I switched the comms back on, only to hear Ray praying and crying from his side. Ray, buddy, you've gotta come back to the Ares. We could barely see him through the starboard windows, standing right at the entrance of the tunnel.
Maya, it was horrible. I couldn't. I don't have any weapons.
Weapons? Both I and Sarah yelped informally.
To protect them.
Listen, Ray, come back on board, and you'll explain what happened. Without any oxygen, you won't be able to help them anyway.
Maya.
His voice was cracking. Get back here now! That's an order! Sarah quickly got the medbay ready, and came back to the main hatch in time to help me get Ray safely back inside. He was delirious.
It came out of nowhere. I told him. I told Phillips that the walls looked weird. Like they were like...
Calm down, buddy. Sarah, can't you give him something?
I have to see the extent of his injuries first.
That was really professional of her, and it would have been alright if Ray wasn't struggling with us like an ox in heat. Even Chris arrived in the medbay to hold him down.
Jeez, man. Easy on the chocolate pudding cake.
Stop it, both of you, and help me get his helmet off before he suffocates.
Sarah was trying her best, but it was obvious that Ray went through some incredible trauma. I'd never seen him like this, and this wasn't the first time he was my co-pilot. We'd been on moon missions together more times than I can count. His cries were what really got me, though. Not just the crazy story that he was bumbling.
I'm telling you, Maya. It was the walls. It came out of them. But it was also a part of them. The walls of the tunnel. I told Phillips, but he wouldn't listen.
What are you saying, Ray? Did you see living things down there?
That's impossible!
Sarah burst out. Hush, Sarah! Let him get it off his chest, I told her. Chris was holding down Ray, and was as silent as a mouse. His confusion almost matched Ray's.
The walls, Maya. The walls were made out of flesh!
Ray finally said, and lost consciousness. Chris eventually managed to get Ray's recording device, but it was badly damaged, which meant we only had his word for what happened down there. Meanwhile, Sarah was moving around Ray with the speed of light, scanning, and checking for injuries visually. However, she couldn't find anything wrong with him physically.
Shock,
she said. I could have told you as much, Sarah. What the hell happened down there? Walls made of flesh?
Shock.
Thanks. That's what you went to medical school for, eh?
Maybe there is some truth to what he was saying.
Sarah and I looked at Chris in utter disbelief. We were on Mars, a planet that we had known for centuries to be dead and done. Truth to what Ray was saying? Maybe you should check if this one hit his head too. Sarah wasn't interested in my shenanigans. Ray would have been. He loved poking fun at Chris and his wild theories. Professor Phillips hated listening to Chris, and every time they would get into an argument on extraterrestrial life, I could see the academic's blood starting to boil. I loved it. Not to speak ill of the dead, but that guy sure could make any subject matter a point of contention. Well, since our soldier boy is out cold, it seems I'm the only one here that can go out and see what actually happened in the tunnels.
Are you mad? If the tunnels didn't fall apart on them, the chances are that there was either a toxin that slipped into their suits or something else that killed the two and made Ray into a bumbling mess of a man.
So what do you suggest we do? Go back?
Yes, Maya, that's what I'm suggesting.
We can't leave them there,
Chris finally spoke.
and we have to see what happened. They'll be expecting a full report back home so that they know how to prep for the other missions.
Hear that? That's the voice of reason.
As opposed to?
The voice of fear, Sarah.
Are you telling me you're not afraid?
I'm telling you that I'm the commander of this mission. I don't have the privilege to be afraid. I'm going down there.
Maya, I think I should go.
No, Chris. It's my duty to see what happened and to bring back the bodies of our dead. If they're even dead. Besides, I'll be the one writing the report. I should see the situation with my own eyes. Of course I was afraid. Whatever was down there broke the mind of the strongest person I had ever known. But I had to see for myself. It wasn't just the report. I had to know. I tried to cut down the procedure, to leave the Ares as much as I safely could, so that I was ready and packed inside my suit in a matter of hours. Just as I was standing at the hatch and preparing for my coveted Mars walk, Chris joined me there, holding something in his hands.
It's not exactly a weapon, but it might just do the trick if anything shows up.
He handed me a long metal pipe that he had clearly yanked out of something in engineering. Should I be worried about where this came from?
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
He smiled at me. And you really think I need this?
Better safe than sorry, right?
I turned around and unlocked the hatch, leaving the safety of the Ares. Sarah and Chris were under command to light up the Ares and leave if I didn't come back in around 12 hours, which was approximately the time I had with my oxygen tanks. She hated the idea of Chris piloting the ship almost as much as she hated me going through the tunnel. But we all have to work with the cards we've been dealt. Even though I couldn't hear it, I felt the crunch of the Martian soil under my feet when I stepped out of the ship. It would have felt amazing had the circumstances been different. Comms check. Ares, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Maya.
Thanks, Chris. Where's Sarah?
Ray woke up. She's with him.
Is he saying anything new?
Sarah hasn't informed me of anything. Do you want me to check?
Not right now. I'm almost at the entrance.
Remember to switch on the recorder once you're in.
Here is a gaping hole in the ground. The open looks bigger. Where I'm stand. Pitch black.
Maya, I'm losing you. You're on your own from now. Godspeed.
That was the last time I heard a human voice. I would never have imagined it to be Chris at the end, nor did I want it to be him. I could already tell that the trek inside the tunnel would be a long one. Ray had been inside for over 8 hours, so I knew that I had to at least get to the place approximately 4 to 5 hours from here. He must have been hyperventilating to drain his oxygen so fast upon return. In any case, I'll soon find out what scared him so much that he could barely hold his senses together, to even run back to the Ares and establish communication. At first, everything looked just as I expected it to look. A dark, long tunnel, heading deep inside the belly of the planet. It had a subtle decline, but it still felt a bit difficult walking downwards. The ground was rocky and uneven, and my light was just dim enough to not show every single thing I could potentially hit into. I stubbed my toes way too many times, and Mars made sure I felt every little rock through my heavy boots. The first 2 hours or so were pretty uneventful, and mostly included me cursing at the rocky terrain. However, as I was getting lower and lower into the tunnel, I began noticing changes in my surroundings. Gradual changes. The ground had become soft here and there. Then, there were things that almost looked like Vines. No, they were veins, going through both the ground and the walls. I had to get very close to the walls to be able to see them. I even thought that it was the trick of the light, my nerves even, that were messing with my perception. As I was getting close to hour 3 of my descent, deeper into the bowels of Mars, I began noticing that the changes had almost completely taken over the place. Everything felt soft and mushy under my boots. I couldn't feel the crunch of the soil anymore, nor did I stub my toes on any rocks. I kept tripping over weird veins that were swirling around the sides of the tunnel, until I face-planted right on the ground and came really close to seeing what it was made out of. The ground looked organic. Organic. Like flesh. What the fuck? Was there actually some truth to what Ray was on about back at the medbay? When I was getting up from the ground, I noticed that my gloves were covered in some kind of slime, but I couldn't feel its consistency or see its true color under my light. I took out a small vial from my kit and collected some of it, though I wasn't sure if it was something that I should be bringing back to the Ares. Who knows what it was? Getting up from the ground was tricky. First, it felt almost as if I was trying to get up from a waterbed, and on top of that, it was all covered in that slime that made me slip and fall way too many times. When I finally got up and looked ahead of me, I could have swore that I saw something move on the side walls of the tunnel. Or was it the walls that were moving? Damn flashlight. It was worth close to nothing in the pitch-black tunnels of Mars. Something strange came over me, and I finally felt fear creeping in. I grabbed the pipe that Chris gave me in my other hand and held onto it tightly, ready to strike if the chance presented itself to me. Something was still moving in the distance of the tunnel. I could only see its shadow that was cast on the walls ahead of me. I felt very small compared to it, even though the shadow didn't show a grand thing that was moving. Ray's words kept playing in my head, over and over again, as I came close to the point where I first saw something move. There was nothing there now, but I could almost feel a presence deeper inside the tunnel. My throat was dry, and I could feel my heart racing faster and faster. At this rate, I'll be burning through my oxygen faster than Ray did with his. Because I was focusing on the tunnel ahead, I stopped looking at the ground, and eventually tripped again, falling on the soft surface. I noticed the slime again, but this time I also realized where it came from. Just next to the pool of ooze I had fallen into, I saw a pile of fabric, and an oxygen tank perched upon it. Not possible, I thought, so I crawled closer to the pile and saw a pair of boots, still strapped onto the fabric. I looked down into the slime, and couldn't hold my vomit as it came out of my mouth and onto my visor. I was literally crawling through the liquefied remains of either Phillips or Sheridan. No force on Mars or Earth could make me inspect the suit to figure out which one it was. Suddenly, the movement in the tunnel became even more dynamic. With my visor covered in puke, I could see even less than I did before, so I had to find my pipe by touch alone. When it was finally in my hand, I raised my flashlight to shine it into the tunnel again. Just as fast as I had raised my flashlight, something knocked me off my feet and back into the ooze again. The shape of it was amorphous and inhuman. The instant it came at me again, I smacked it with the pipe, jumped up, and ran away as fast as I possibly could. However, it took me a moment to realize that I was running in the wrong direction and deeper inside the tunnel. At what happened to be hour 4 of my descent, I finally arrived at a place that no human eyes had ever seen before. Not even Ray, I would presume, since what I saw at that moment was something that he surely would have rambled about first when he got back to the Ares. As I was getting closer to that point, I thought I felt the ground move slightly, but I was running so fast that I couldn't be sure. Once I had completely stopped, however, I was certain. It was moving. Not just the ground, but everything. I shined my flashlight into a massive opening at the very end of the tunnel and saw a beast of magnanimous proportion. While I wasn't the mission's expert on such matters, I would have called it a primordial creature, sleeping within its planet-sized shell. It looked underdeveloped still. Was this some kind of space baby trapped by the gravity of our sun before it could hatch? What the fuck? It was as magnificent as it was terrifying. I sure am glad it was still curled around itself like a fetus. Hopefully, it would take billions more to hatch. Because if it does... Suddenly, I felt the presence of another creature near me. As it came closer, the massive fetus began uncurling slightly, like the two were connected. Was the thing that was after me even a creature? Or was it some kind of defense organism, protecting the beast? Fuck if I cared at that moment. Once I saw it come even closer, I raised the pipe, only to realize that it wasn't a pipe I was holding, but a broken femur bone. I dropped it to the ground out of sheer horror, and with no defenses of my own, the only thing I could do was to run as fast as I could and ram my body into the thing to knock it out. God, was I lucky that my plan worked. I rammed into the thing, and it splashed into a million little bits of goo, covering both me and a sizable amount of the tunnel. I cleared my visor and began running in the direction of the exit, realizing that I had been in the tunnel for much longer than Ray had been. I ran and I ran for hours, without the slightest notion where at all the stamina came from. Finally, as my oxygen levels were almost depleting, I reached the exit, and could see the daylight coming through the opening. I happily pounced towards it, thinking that I had been saved, lucky to be alive. However, just as I left the tunnel, I saw that the Ares had already taken up flight.
Ares! Ares, can you hear me? I'm alive!
The moment I said those words, the worst scenario imaginable occurred. There was a tiny puff of smoke that came out of the rear of the Ares, and in a matter of seconds, it was swirling erratically around the sky until it crashed somewhere in the distance of the planet. I was alive, but were they? Again, I felt a presence in the tunnel behind me. The ground shook a little. I didn't even turn to face it this time.
Uber Flight 101, please respond. This is Uber Flight 101. Go ahead. Captain, we hope you and your travelers are doing well. This is flight control regarding your scheduled pickup and delivery of your current passengers. Your route takes you directly into an oncoming storm system, but we just wanted to keep you aware, and please feel free to provide ongoing updates of your passage. Yeah, I see it, Control. Clouds look black, but it's nothing that we haven't dealt with before. Are you suggesting we land? That's a negative. We just want to keep our lines open to you in the event of an emergency. Copy that, Control. I'll keep you updated until we're through the storm. It's definitely a big one. Control! Control, come in! Flight Control, please respond. This is Flight Control. Go ahead. Control, this is Uber Flight 101. Are there any other aircraft scheduled to be in our vicinity? 101, come back with that last request. You're breaking up. There's an aircraft in the storm. Please make contact and let them know we're approaching and to keep their distance. The storm is making it difficult to maintain trajectory. If they're not careful, we risk a collision. Captain, there shouldn't be an aircraft near you. You're the only flight scheduled through the area this evening. Control, you need to take another look at your readings. This thing is huge. We're coming up on it fast. There's no way you're missing it on your radar. It may be unscheduled, but it's definitely up there. Please, try to reach them. They need to give us a wide berth. I've got kids on board this thing. Flight 101, respond now. Yes. Yes, Control. Go ahead. Captain, describe what you are seeing. What the hell do you mean, describe it? We need you to remain calm. We are designating your interaction as an unidentified flying object scenario. We're doing all we can to contact the aircraft you are approaching. We just need some more information to learn of its origin and if it's a rogue pilot. You can handle it, Captain. You're trained for this. I know the storm is an added stressor, but please, detail. We need you to describe the UFO. I can't believe this. You don't know what it is, do you? Describe it. It's big. I didn't realize how big it is. We're getting closer. Christ! I don't know what this thing is. I'm trying to turn, but the storm is disrupting our instruments. If I go manual, I could risk losing control entirely, and the truth is, I'm losing my nerve. Help us, please. We're doing all we can. We need you to remain calm and describe what you are seeing. Do it now. It's not right control. This thing, I don't think it's a ship. Captain, come back with that. It's not a ship? No, it's not. I think it's alive. Flight 101, you are not making any sense. We need you to remain command and give us more information. You're gonna make it through this. Hello? Captain? It's black. Made of skin? This thing, it's coming out of the storm. It has arms. God, they're not arms. They're tentacles. I can't. Jesus, it has eyes. They're red. Full. No. Empty. Black. Please. Control. Get us out of here. We're doing everything we can. Just keep talking, Captain. Keep talking to me. It's like it's coming out of something. A window or a portal of some kind. It's surfacing from a deep hole in the sky. Fuck. God, I sound insane. It's dripping wet. It's covered in water. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. Control, I know this sounds crazy, but there's water. Oceans. Vast oceans on the other side of the hole. I mean the tear. The tear. In the sky that it's coming out of. Wait. What's that? What's happening? Captain, are you still with me? I can hear it now. It's speaking to me. Its voice, it's beautiful. God damn it, man, what's it saying? What has lived will wither, and what has slept will ascend. Loathsomeness waits and dreams in the deep, and decay will spread over the fallible cities of man. The old ones are coming. They will teach us new ways to shout and rend and revel in our folly. All the earth will be aflame with an inferno of ecstasy and chaos. Stop! Stop this now! Calm down and shut up! The thing cannot be described. There is no language for such abyssal shrieking and ancient lunacies. When the stars are aligned, it can plunge from world to world through the sky, but when the stars are wrong, it cannot live. It is a contradiction of all matter, force, and cosmic order, a mountain that has emerged into our tiny world. For the love of God, please help us! Hello? Captain? Captain, respond. Somebody answer me, please.
We have waited, dreaming. What was submerged will rise. Madness comes.
After so many years of dreaming of it, life on Mars was almost a reality. Humanity was so close to finally, officially, being able to call the neighboring planet a second home. Slowly but surely, hundreds of very significant missions from all over the world have done incredible work to make this dream come true. The atmosphere of the planet was almost ready to be completely safe for humans to breathe naturally. All the primary buildings were standing proudly. It wasn't all just scientific bases anymore. There were hospitals, offices, hotels, and more. The first set of carefully planned neighborhoods were halfway done. The first few hundred habitants would be arriving very soon. One of the most important parts about making a new planet completely habitable for humans was making sure it was possible to harvest food. For decades, the best scientists have dedicated their lives to studying Mars' surface and soil, and the way our usual seeds reacted to it all. The process was succeeding greatly. It was proved that not only people on Mars could grow perfectly good fruits and vegetables, but also some lively flowers to make life just as colorful on a new planet. However, this red planet had its secrets. It comes as no surprise that human scientists aren't content with one discovery, with one success, with just one hypothesis confirmed. It is even less surprising that, under the motivation of profit, humans are unafraid to cross all boundaries, break all rules, skip over all warnings. Sometimes this could be rewarding and the source of some of the things humanity has created. But sometimes this greed can be responsible for the greatest horrors, the most catastrophic consequences, and the absolute worst-case scenario possible. In this case, everything started on the big facility where the agricultural development was taking place. More precisely, on a small building on its side. This discreet, almost unnoticeable place existed in a very confidential way. The people that worked there rarely left the building. They had dormitories on the upper floor, and they avoided interaction with all other fellow scientists. This extreme level of secrecy was due to the experiments that took place in that malicious and immoral building. It was called the Dark Venus Unit. Not an irony toward the planet, but in honor of the Venus flytrap, an infamous subject there. The Dark Venus Unit worked under the leadership of the brothers Gabe and Evan Clayton. Occasionally, some careful assistants passed by the unit, always under a mountain of non-disclosure agreements. But they never lasted long. This was due to many reasons. Partially, it was because the Clayton brothers weren't particularly kind and welcoming to strangers. Plus, they were extremely jealous and protective of their work. But a big part of the assistants' resistance to long-lasting work was because of the subject of the work itself. The things that the young scientists saw in the Dark Venus Unit were fascinating at first, but soon they would be troubling, and then problematic. But soon enough, they were utterly disturbing things. As soon as they walked down the stairs toward the basement of the building, though, every single one of them quit the day after. So most of the time, it was just Gabe and Evan. They worked diligently and passionately. They devoted their lives to the plants growing in the Dark Venus Unit. They put their entire hearts into their work. But, as most people might argue upon discovering the horrible secrets these two men were responsible for, they had vile, dark, and venomous hearts. Before everything ended tragically, it started with a normal day. On the upper floor, Evan woke up in the mid-morning, feeling good about his day. He went through his morning routine and the basics of living in a secret laboratory on the surface of Mars. A healthy breakfast, a shower, a pristine suit, and a lab coat. And nobody could have guessed the things he had created. Then he descended to the main floor of the laboratory, where things could be unsettling for some people, but at first glance it was mostly just beautiful. There it was in all its glory. Rows upon rows of the most incredible plants someone could imagine. Things that shouldn't be possible were made possible by Gabe and Evan. That was their job. They didn't manipulate the soil from Mars to adapt to the Earth's seed. They combined both and created unimaginable things. There was a section of fruits that, although beautiful, could melt human flesh. There was a table filled with rose bushes that vibrated and buzzed, and if cut from the stems, could move by themselves for days. Vegetables of impossible colors, leaves of irrational textures, roots moved like tentacles under the soil, and branches had hissed and grumbled when touched. Evan would spend his morning tending to these beautiful and sometimes hardly comprehensible plants he was responsible for. But first things first, he needed to check the specimens in the basement. That's where his brother would be waiting for him. Gabe took the night shift and Evan the day shift. But this day, things were different. Evan was walking toward the door that led to the basement when said door was slammed open. "Good, you're awake," Gabe said. He didn't look very relieved, though. He was sweating. His own tie was missing, and his entire self looked more than a little disheveled. "Lucy is giving me some trouble today," Gabe explained. The news made Evan gulp nervously. He was proud of their work. He didn't harvest a single regret in his heart. In fact, if given the chance to go even farther and test even more dangerous extremes, he would do so without batting an eyelash. That, however, didn't mean he couldn't experience fear of his own creations. Silently, the two brothers descended the stairs. There, they were greeted only by dim lighting, a tepid smell, and nearly suffocating humidity. The creatures in the basement preferred complete darkness, but the Clayton siblings weren't so sure they could survive down there without at least a little light. The basement worked very differently from the main floor. Down there were no tables, no order, and no rules. By the time Gabe and Evan discovered the unbelievable properties of the Mars surface, they decided to take two routes. They would harvest tulips that floated an inch above their stems on the main floor of the lab, and in the basement, they would grow their organic beasts. "How is everyone?" Evan asked, as he did every day upon descending the last step from the staircase and into the damp soil. His brother sighed gravely. He didn't have time for the usual routine, but he did his best. They passed by each of their most bizarre experiments. Bobby is in good shape, but he's nervous. He can sense there is something bad going on around him. Then Gabe pointed toward a 4-foot-tall translucent egg of gelatinous texture that had spurred, initially from a simple pumpkin seed. Debbie is under control as well. She's burning at just a slightly higher temperature than usual, but I don't think there's a reason to be concerned yet. Then Gabe waved toward a climbing plant that covered one corner of the room. From its blossoms somehow flower small rivers of burning lava, which pooled at that one impenetrable corner, kept contained by a special barrier about a foot tall. "And that's it," Gabe stated grimly. "What do you mean?" His brother inquired a little breathlessly. "What about Thomas?" A sort of cactus that grew under a protective glass dome due to its ability to shoot its thorns at random intervals. And the twins? A pair of immense Venus flytraps with sharp teeth that constantly tried to eat each other. "And they're gone, Evan!" Gabe snapped. "Lucy attacked, okay? She ate them all." There was a moment of tense silence, and each brother knew exactly what the other was thinking. Lucy was the best and worst of their creations. Like most things that had been left in the basement, Lucy was born as an accident. They experimented with different seeds from Earth and different treatments to the soil from Mars. One day they got a leaf, and it was stronger than steel. They watched in awe as the Lucy grew. More and more leaves getting bigger, heavier, stronger, impenetrable, unkillable. It was an extremely complex plant resembling a moss-green crab the size of a crocodile that slithered freely in the darkness of that secret basement. Then the roots started moving and leaving the earth underneath and exploring the expanse of the room. Soon enough, they confirmed their suspicions. Lucy had developed a conscience. Before Evan could ask, Gabe said it. "She went underground. I can't find her, but I can feel her moving underneath my feet, I think. She's waiting to attack. I don't care what you think, Evan. I'm calling this off, and I'm going to go get help." As if their devilish plant had listened to her creator speaking ill of her, she silently creeped out from the soil and attacked. But not the Clayton brothers. No. First, the monster raised a powerful leaf in the air and struck Bobby, the mysterious egg. It cracked and spilled in a furious splash, leaking something akin to amniotic fluid all over the ground. The smell was awful, but the real bone-chilling factor was the nearly deafening cry of a baby, or whatever frightening thing was lying at the bottom of the broken egg. With their shoes wet and their hearts racing, the Clayton brothers didn't even have time to react before they heard an even more alarming crash, like a hammer coming down on a building. Lucy's steel-like leaves came down on the barrier that kept the lava contained, and suddenly it was starting to spill forward. Evan and Gabe started screaming. They ran toward the stairs, but from the ground a massive leaf burst out, blocking their way and threatening to smash them down. They tried to turn to their right, but the lava was spreading faster and faster. They switched to their left, but the baby's cries were growing louder and louder, though not enough to hide the sound of a third and maybe fourth set of footsteps splashing on the spilled liquid. Refusing to see the monsters they had created, the brothers ran in the opposite direction, even though there was no exit. They scurried from side to side, but they still felt the ground trembling underneath their feet with the power of an unexplainable creature hunting them down. Finally, Evan grabbed his brother's arms and stopped him. Then he told him, "Lucy was mine, right from the beginning. I'd let this go for too long. Go get help, or let us destroy ourselves here quietly. But save yourself." Evan pushed his brother as hard as he could away from him. Gabe fell down near the stairs, and he had no option but to watch his brother stand tall, while 5 massive leaves erupted from the ground and stood menacingly over him. Mercifully, the last of the light bulbs went out in that instant. The 2 brothers screamed in agony at the same time. But only one of them made it out of there alive.
The air was moist. Soft clouds hanging around me as I made my way upwards. Wangshan was an ethereal place. Quite possibly heaven on earth, if I was being honest. In all my years of hiking and traveling over the globe, I had come across many wonders that Mother Nature had kept hidden beneath her veil, away from the polluting gaze of mankind. I, being favored by her, was able to witness these with my own 2 eyes. And to say that it was a blessing would be an understatement. I had arrived in Beijing a few days ago. The many cultures of the Chinese people, the invigorating sense of food on the streets, the old palaces, it was all very overwhelming, in a good way. I was there with my associate, Nicole, a bright young woman with the mannerisms of a mother and a boss simultaneously. She was my travel partner, and although not as adventurous as I, she would trudge along wherever I wanted to go, even if it was the last corner of the earth. There was moss on the rocks that I stepped on, making the climb a bit slippery, but it was all right, nothing my Meryl Moabs couldn't endure. They had been on my feet for as long as I could remember, and not once had they betrayed me. They made every climb easier and softer for my feet, and I adored them. I wiped the sweat off my brow and adjusted my backpack on my shoulders with a little shrug. It had gotten very humid lately, and being from Nevada, I wasn't a big fan of that. I'd looked up the weather forecast on my phone the previous night, as I always did, and rain was not expected in the upcoming week at all. So it came as a surprise when clouds started covering the peak I was trekking on. It was then that something in the back pocket of my shorts buzzed, and I fished for my phone amongst empty wrappers and a few loose yuan. I pulled it out and held it up to my ear. It was Nicole. "Hello, Nicole," I said breathlessly into the phone.
Ronald Wymore. She began with a huff, and since she had used my full government name, I knew I was in trouble. I've called you about 14 times now. Why the hell were you not picking up? I could imagine her leaning against a surface with a frown on her face as she questioned me. I had to stifle my laughter. Probably an issue with the signals. My phone isn't the best one, you know. I rolled my eyes, even though I knew she could not see them. Whatever, Ron. Just wanted to let you know that I have your current location. You better be back soon. We have the photographs to sort and articles to write. And before I could speak another word, she hung up. Typical Nicole. Now, Nicolette Kozlov was not always such a party pooper. Yes, she had her moments and would smile about twice a year, but she was a good person, even though she didn't show it much. I sighed as I put my phone away and looked in front of me. There was nothing but towering mountain peaks, clouds scattered about everywhere. Green vegetation sprouted from under rocks and earth, weaving its way up in intricate twines and bushes. I felt my breath hitch for a moment and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I lifted the camera around my neck with shaking hands and brought it up to my right eye. What I saw that day, or countless other times when I'd be traveling and hit by the beauty of Mother Nature, could never be compared to what my camera captured. It was hauntingly beautiful. And maybe these lifeless things envied humans, I thought. After taking several pictures, I thought it would be nice to take a break, since I'd been walking for over an hour and had not had the chance to sit down. I looked behind me. A few meters away was a huge pile of rocks, eroded to look almost like a hammock. It looked like the perfect place to rest. I smiled as I made my way over, stumbling slightly as I reached the rocks. I put my backpack down gently, opened it up, and reached for the bottle of water inside. After quenching my thirst, I decided to rest against the hammock-shaped rock. With a sigh, I sat down amongst the stones, making myself comfortable. It was funny how humans could find comfort in both mattresses and rocks, given the circumstances they were currently in. I didn't mind the rock hammock one bit. I looked up at the sky to admire the view once more when my eyebrows furrowed. Dark, angry clouds had covered every inch of the sky, which had been previously very blue just moments ago, and small flashes of distant lightning could be seen. The wind had picked up its speed, and I could now feel it passing through my clothes, playing with my hair as it went by. With a frown, I lifted myself up to get a closer look when the clouds rumbled, thundering so loud that I flinched, causing the rocks that I was on to tumble, and I fell. A loud yell left my lips as I was enveloped in darkness, my arms flailing as I tried to hold on to something, anything at all. But I just kept falling for what seemed like hours, until my back hit the ground and I let out a pained groan at the impact. My head spun, and my eyes were bleary as they adjusted. It was a hard fall. Maybe not that hard, since I had, somehow, survived it. My body ached all over, and I felt my stomach pitch at the thought I might be trapped. I shook my head. This was no time to be thinking about things like that. When my eyes fully adjusted, a gasp left my lips involuntarily. When one falls amongst a cluster of miniature boulders, all one initially cares about is being alive. And being trapped in an underground cave? Only if you're alive. I had expected it to be very dark and dusty, but what my eyes saw was quite the contrary. Burning beacons were lined against the eroded, firm walls that surrounded me, illuminating the space.
My eyes roamed around the circle. The diameter could not have been more than 6 meters that surrounded me. The circle seemed perfect. Not something you would expect to find underground. I rose to my feet, wincing. My knees were bruised and my left foot was twisted at an odd angle. I was pretty sure it was broken. I lifted an aching arm and fished for my phone in my back pocket, or its remnants, anyways. But to my surprise and great relief, it was there in one piece, only a single large crack running down the screen. I could almost cry how happy I was. I turned my phone on. There was, of course, no service available, and it was 4 in the afternoon. Just great. I held onto it just in case I needed a flashlight or something else, and it was kind of reassuring to hold my phone, like I was holding my mother's hand in a room full of strangers. My backpack being no longer with me, my shoulders felt empty, and I rolled them to get rid of the feeling. I knew I had to be brave. The beacons irradiated the room, covering it in soft, yellow light. And had it been under different circumstances, I would have appreciated the soft glow. The circle I stood in led to a narrow, dimly lit path, and since standing there would not do me any good, I decided to go and check it out, in hope of finding an exit. I limped towards the path with a small groan. Moving and dragging my feet hurt a lot more than I had originally thought it might. The walls of the path were very straight. Peculiar, considering the place seemed empty and obviously devoid of any signs of life. I balanced myself on the walls of the narrow passageway, huffing as sweat poured down my neck. The walls were rough, even against my calloused hands, and they pricked my skin, causing it to sting. But as much as I was pushing forwards, my feet refused to budge after a while. Sighing, I sat down against the walls, the narrow confines barely wide enough to accommodate me. I tugged off my plaid shirt and tore it in half. One half I decided to tie around my foot as a brace. Undoing the laces of my boots, I grimaced at my bloody white socks, looking away before the sight made me sick. As quickly as I could, I wrapped the cloth around my foot, not fighting the tears that left my eye because of the pain. It was a pain unlike any other I had experienced before, a burning feeling, as if I was walking on hot coals and flames were devouring me, licking every inch of my foot. With a sigh of relief, I fastened the cloth and then looked at the remaining piece. I decided to tear it into 2 and tie the pieces around my bleeding knees. After fastening them, I decided to search my pockets for anything else that might come in handy. My hands prodded around and managed to procure the following. To keep myself focused, I made a mental note. 2 hazelnut-flavored granola bars, a switchblade, empty wrappers of different candies, some hand sanitizer, and a black, obsidian-like rock that I had found at the beginning of my trek. I stuffed the things into my front pockets and got up. The pain had subsided, if only a little bit, and I was feeling much better knowing I had a few things on hand. Now left only in my vest and a pair of shorts, I trudged forward, since that was the only way to go. The narrow path seemed endless as I walked and walked, occasionally turning on my phone to look at the time. It was 6 p.m. already, and still no service. Just when I was about to sit down and rest again, I saw a glimmer of light ahead, so I walked a bit faster, hoping to reach some sort of exit. Unfortunately, it was nothing of the kind. No, it was a rectangular room with the characters of an unfamiliar language engraved all over the walls. And in front of me were 3 different tunnels, leading to God knows where. I was astonished by the engravings, and I traced their contours with my fingertips. The room was better lit than the rest, and it seemed as if the characters were announcements of some kind, maybe an indication. They were a bit smudged, having been there for who knows how long, and quite eroded. It was very clear that the one who had written them was in a hurry, as the smooth flow of the characters turned into a rushed, short current, as if the person could not stay much longer. The message that the characters had wanted to convey must have been very important, and as such, I wanted to know what it meant. Unfortunately, I was not acquainted with the language. I had done my best to learn Mandarin Chinese within the time allotted before I came here. A few greetings, tourist talk, how to say yes and no, how to ask for the bathroom or how much something cost, things like that. So this was a language that was far beyond my understanding. However, I couldn't shake one thought out of my mind, that these words were a warning. Although I had not understood the text, a deep, unsettled feeling pooled at the pit of my stomach, and the breakfast I'd eaten that morning threatened to make a reappearance. Should I venture on? Or should I just stay here? Should I wait for someone to find me? These questions plagued my mind, and I shook my head. As much as thinking things through was important, I didn't have much time. My choices were limited. All I knew was that there were 3 paths in front of me, and I had to choose one. It was frightening, yes, but also thrilling. The thought of uncovering something great, something that mankind had never seen or should never see, was what consumed me at the moment. So I brought out my switchblade and turned towards the walls. In a corner that was left empty, I wrote down my initials, my age, the date, and a little message warning people of what was ahead. Even though I did not know what it was, I could feel it was dangerous. Feeling like the main character of some historic thriller movie, I turned towards the paths, perversely amused at the strangeness of the situation I found myself in. None of the tunnels looked inviting. They all looked as if something deadly inside was waiting for me to step in, to tear me limb from limb. Despite that feeling, I had not encountered any living creature as of yet. There were no large insects or sleeping dragons or ancient beings. Not even the sign of basic plant life. The whole place was void of any living thing. Except, of course, for me. But who could know how long that would be true for? I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, pointing my finger straight ahead. And, wincing, I slowly spun in a circle on the spot where I stood. I spun a few times until I stopped, and my breath hitched. My finger was pointing to the path on the right side, and so that was where I would go. Was I making the best decision? Quite possibly not. But what were the odds? I did not know what lay ahead if I was to enter any of those caves, so one choice was as good as another. I trudged in the direction of the cave, gulping. My throat had gone dry, as it was more than 2 hours since I had last had water. Not thinking much about that, since it would only make me more thirsty, I walked forward once again. This tunnel, unlike the previous one, had no source of light inside, so I switched my phone on, thanking myself for charging it fully the night prior. But as soon as I turned on the flashlight on my phone, everything around me gleamed in an exploding ray of colors. It was almost blinding, so I closed my eyes for a bit, opening them when I heard no sound and deemed it safe enough. There were thousands of tiny crystals embedded in the walls above and the ground below me. Small pieces of jade, ruby, emerald, sapphire, and other stones that I was unable to recognize. It was beautiful. how they gleamed. And I began to wonder what this place really was. I had forgotten all about the ache in my foot as I gaped at the gems, progressing ahead with fast-paced steps. It seemed as if I was in a trance, because I do not remember how far I had walked, as a matter of fact. All I remember was the large gasp that had left my mouth when I reached the end of the tunnel. The sound of rushing water could be heard very clearly as I neared the end. And that is when I snapped out of the trance I was previously in. My throat begged for water, and so my footsteps sped up on their own, and I could see light once more. My phone's battery was at a very low percentage, and when I checked the time before tucking it away, it was 10 p.m. The large place that I now entered was well lit with beacons and gems all over. It contained a large waterfall in the center. My mind overwhelmed by thirst, I rushed forwards, dunking my face in the large pool at the bottom of the currents. And it was so refreshing, that water. It was probably the sweetest thing that I had ever tasted. I do not remember how long I had drank for, just that it felt heavenly. I unwrapped the 2 granola bars and stuffed my face with them. Although I wasn't partial to the flavor, Nicole had insisted I take them along in case I felt hungry. That moment, I could have kissed her for that. Just as I finished chewing on them, I turned around, looking at the waterfall, and that was when my eye caught something that glinted, brighter than all the gems in the place. It was right behind the waterfall, and only a couple of rocks away from where I stood. And after having satiated myself, there was this new energy in me, and I wanted to know what it was. Ignoring the fact that my foot was quite literally broken, I climbed up the rocks, the jets of water soaking through my chest. When I finally managed the ascent, I found myself confronted by the emblem of a feline, embedded in the rocks. It was definitely made of gold or something that was even more precious. It had diamonds for eyes and a ruby for a nose. I reached out, placing my palm against it. It felt cool, and at the same time like I was touching something sacred, and that it was something powerful. But nothing happened. Not until I removed my hand. The rocks beneath me started shaking once again, and I held on to the wall of rocks behind me until that started disappearing as well. With nothing to hold on to, I just crouched down in order to not get killed. And it went on like that for a while before it stopped all of a sudden. With bated breath, I raised my head. I stumbled backwards at the sight before me, for it was far too great than anything that I had ever seen. A large feline sat in place of what was a waterfall, its large eyes staring at me with bloodlust. I had disturbed this mighty creature from its sleep, and now I had to face the consequences. The ground rumbled when it, I can only say, purred, and I felt every fiber in my being shake. The switchblade in my pocket would not even tickle the mighty creature, and the rock, it would probably not even see it. Its eyes were black pits of endlessness. Its mouth curled up into a vicious grin, as if it could taste my terror. Its fur was glowing, much like the golden emblem that I had placed my hand upon, and to say I was terrified would have been an understatement. I was not a particularly religious person, and believing in deities was something I had never even thought about. But what I saw in front of me, it was otherworldly. I moved back slightly, gulping, hoping it would not notice me, but oh, it did. It hissed, shrinking into a much smaller shape. This made it almost even scarier than before, because now it sat almost 7 feet, and its eyes never left mine. It looked like it wanted to play with me, like it wanted to toy with its food before eating it, swallowing it whole. I gulped once more. The water that had traveled down my throat a while ago felt like it was never there, with how parched I now felt. The creature's tongue ran across its teeth as it eyed me, and there was only one thought in my mind. Run! And so I ran. Its large paws made indentations on the ground as it paced after me. I could hear its erratic breathing, and almost feel its fur and the swipe of its tongue. It felt as if it could swipe me off my feet at any moment it wanted. It was just waiting for me to give up. Who knows what adrenaline pumped through me, because I did not feel an ounce of pain in my broken foot. With nowhere else to go, I had to run back to where I came from. The creature growled behind me as I ran into the tunnel, not caring about the sweat pouring down my back in buckets. I increased my pace the best I could, as I was about to get out of the tunnel, dodging its paws as they came for me from left and right. It was breathing right down my neck when I took a swift turn and was again back in the room with the wall full of warnings. Or so I assumed. I ran into the tunnel in the center, not looking if it was coming after, since I could not hear its paws against the tunnel ground. With each step, my heart thundered, like it wanted to escape my ribcage and be free, like it wanted to be out of my body. And there it was, the sound of paws against the ground. And with how each muscle flexed with each leap under its skin, it had no difficulty catching up to me. My brain was going wild, thoughts racing through my head. Did giant supernatural cats have weaknesses? They did hate water, but that thing came from behind a waterfall, so no luck there. What about light? That room was well lit, but could it be a weakness, since its eyes were so very dark? Maybe there was only one way to find out. This tunnel was wet, and that slowed both of us down. It seemed as if it was right behind that waterfall, or led straight to a source of water with how damp it was. I didn't let that bother me. The only thought on my mind currently was how to survive and escape this mystical being that seemed hell-bent on eating me alive. The tunnel turned left and right quite often. Unlike the previous one, this one was dimly lit, and I could see what was ahead of me without the aid of my phone. I wouldn't have bothered to get it, even if it was pitch dark, since that beast would devour me any second. I took a swift turn out of the tunnel, and the beast roared, shaking the ground and the walls. I shuddered, running into the room with the waterfall once again, and it was there, in the tunnel. And even though its eyes were pitch black, I could see them glaring at me, as if it was the foulest thing on the surface of the earth. It let out low growls as it prowled forwards, not in the mood to play anymore. It was hungry, and I was the only thing that would sate its appetite. The growls that it let out made the hair on my body stand in fear, and I could only walk back as it made its way towards me. I reached for the switchblade in my pockets as gently as I could. It hunched, hissing and baring its teeth at me, as if I did not already know I was about to be its dinner. I was just rooted to my spot as my life ran across my eyes in flashes like a kaleidoscope of memories. It was right before me, drool dripping from the beast's large mouth, teeth protruding to tear me to bits. And I did not know what happened, but I brought out my phone in a matter of seconds and turned my flashlight on, focusing it right on its eyes. And it could not see. It stumbled backward, letting out a large roar, and the wall beside me broke from the impact. I kept walking forward, and it kept growling and trying to get to me, the light making it blind. It thrashed about, knocking more rocks and breaking the walls that surrounded us. Water erupted from beneath where the creature stood, and for one last time, it gave me a glare before it pounced. I stood just in front of the feline emblem, and now my form pushed into it. and the creature disappeared, right before it could tear me apart. I was breathless, and I soon blacked out from exhaustion, unable to process anything. When I woke up the next morning, I was in the bedroom I had booked for myself in the city. It was a bright morning outside, and Nicole sat on one of the chairs in my room, reading a book. The sunlight created a halo above her head, making her look like some kind of angel. "Quite a bit of a hike you had yesterday, huh?" She looked at my broken foot, which was now placed in a cast. "Wouldn't you like to know?" I scoffed. I'd lost my camera, my backpack, and everything else that was inside. I wouldn't be able to hike for a while. As for the rest of the story, I decided not to say anything to Nicole. Some ancient secrets are best left hidden.
Council Chamber. Elders of Padav.
"Never! No one is setting foot on that death trap again," one of the elders said.
"It has been 800 years. Hax didn't pick up any signal from the Earth. Are you sure of what you are saying, Brody Narish?"
Another elder added. "Mighty elders of Padav, I'm sorry if by any means my request caused any form of anger. Forgive me," I pleaded. I knew the elders were hiding something from the people about the Earth. The only story that was told was how the Earth was uninhabitable and they had to leave. I always wondered what happened to the others who were not so lucky to leave Earth. My father would always tell me that a shepherd never left the herd because one sheep was dumber than another. "Narish, you are one of the best soldiers we have. Don't make us regret our choice," Raun, the head of the elders, said. A doorway portal opened up in the chamber where the meeting was held. All 9 elders stood and bowed their heads. I followed suit. It was the presence of Del that caused their reactions. Del was the man who had built the ship the privileged used to journey to the planet now called Padav, with the aid of a wormhole created by Del himself. Everyone feared him greatly, and also respected him. People called him the Timeless Man, because he never aged a bit. "Stand," and everyone stood. "I heard about someone planning on going to the Earth," Del said in a tired tone. "Yes, Del. It is I, Narish." "Narish?" Del asked curiously. "I knew your father. He was an unusual man. What's the urgency of this meeting?" "My team got a distress signal from Earth, and I came to seek permission to have a look with my team." "Interesting. And what do the elders of Padav have to say about this?" "We rejected the request of young Narish, Lord Del," Raun replied. "He has my permission to go on this quest with his teammates and report whatever he finds directly to you," Del said. "Agreed, Lord Del." They were about to give me a formal authorization when Del took out one of his rings and gave it to me. I was stunned, as was the whole council. Such a thing had never happened before. "I would love to see you come back, boy," Del said, with no expression on his face. Sounded like a threat to me, but I couldn't tell. Another doorway portal opened. He walked into it and disappeared. I couldn't understand what Del meant, but the ring I was given was quite powerful because it could open a doorway portal anywhere and possessed great capability for chaos. The elders of Padav were dazzled by the way Del spoke to me. Del was seen as a god. He placed the elders to control Padav, our home after leaving the Earth 800 years ago. Nobody knew anything about Lord Del, not even where he would be from one moment to the next. The only person who had much knowledge of Del was the man himself. And the creepiest thing is, he'd been around since the first settlers of this planet. The elders didn't look like they agreed with the order Del had just given, but they had no choice but to yield.
Narish, you know you are making a mistake, right? And if anything goes wrong, you will be held accountable for it,
one of the three elders said. I smirked and turned to leave the room.
Your blood will be on your hands!
Ryun shrieked from behind me as I walked out of the council chamber without saying another word. Outside, Pam waited, pacing the hallway lost in her own thoughts. Did they approve the mission, sir? She asked gingerly. We've been granted permission. After 800 friggin' years! Finally, Pam said through clenched teeth. We both knew this was different. The Earth hadn't been walked upon by humans for 800 years, or so they said. Yet deep down I knew there was something there. I walked into my office and sat with a big sigh. Pam had known me long enough to know that I was not feeling quite jolly. You want to talk about it? Pam said as she walked into my office. Pam, I spoke to Del. Are you pulling my leg? What did he say to you? She was shocked. He hopes to see us come back. Are we even meant to go on this journey? Del's statement had puzzled a lot. Don't tell me you're having doubts after pushing this far. Do you think we'll make it? I exhaled. Your guess is as good as mine, she said with a smile. I always found comfort in the presence of Pam. She was more than a friend to me, even though the station wasn't in support of intimacy among fellow agents. But if I could select a soulmate for eternity, it would definitely be Pam. Let's go meet the team. Roger that, sir. Pam and I made our way to Section X, where the team was stationed. Padav is dying. Heard that the oxygen we have won't take us long, a euphonic voice said as we drew closer. They noticed our presence and they all stood up, giving their salutes. Who told you that, Sergeant? I questioned. I was testing my new design that's able to breach strong firewalls to get information and control. Wiley Smith, our tech guy, answered. The only place with such a power wall is the council room, so I decided to try it there, and I overheard this.
They can't find out. They must not know.
We stood in silence as Pam and I pondered what it could mean. Wiley Smith, Dan Dave, Sarah Lars, and Ray Ryan. You guys get ready. We leave in an hour. Whatever the council had in mind, I wasn't sticking around to find out. Yes, sir, they answered in unison. Hey, Wiley, stay back, would you? I need you here. Roger that, sir. Wiley, thank you for your time. Don't tell anyone about this. I was slowly getting confused about what was going on. I needed answers to the puzzling questions that burdened me. I had always known the elders to do the right thing for the planet. Maybe I was wrong all along. I walked back to my office, pondering on what Wiley had just said to the team. I stared at the ring Del gave me. It was said to be powerful enough to open a wormhole at any time by thought, and also summoned antimatter energy. I held the ring towards the wall as I summoned a wormhole leading to Portsite, a place on Padav where waste and garbage go for recycling. I was astonished by the power of the ring when I stormed out to show Pam how the ring worked. I dashed into her and Wiley chatting. I wondered what they were talking about. What's going on? I asked. Wiley and I were thinking of going to check the oxygen level of the planet, just to be sure we're not getting wrong news, Pam said. No, I don't approve of this, I replied. Aren't you even a little bit curious about everything going on right now? The elders are keeping something away from us, and we want to know what it is. Aren't you even a little bit curious about everything going on right now? The elders are keeping something away from us, and we want to know what it is. I stared at them. Wiley was the tech head of the squad, and I trusted his guts most of the time. The guy was a bloodhound when it came to things like this. The planet control station is not guarded by humans. Hope you know that. And if you get caught, it'll cause a big shit show for all of us, I said. Don't worry about us getting caught. We have that covered. Been working on a program that I think can hack into the guard robot system. Wiley was tenacious in his creed. You can go, but remember that I didn't approve of this. And I really wish you guys weren't so stubborn half the time.
Council chamber.
I had been summoned again to the council room. I hoped I wasn't in trouble for letting Pam and Wiley go for recon. The atmosphere of the council chamber had a strange aura around it. I felt like Pam and Wiley had been caught, but I had to hold myself together.
Greetings, elders. We will need you and your team to leave immediately for the mission. You have our full permission,
Rayun said.
but I told my team tomorrow. You leave immediately, soldier. And that's final.
I understand, my elders. I bowed, not wanting to argue with them.
You're dismissed, boy,
one of the elders said. I felt something was wrong. I hadn't heard anything from Pam and Wiley concerning their survey on the planet control station for over an hour now. Something didn't seem right.
Sector X. Command section.
I dashed into the section where the team was awaiting my command. All the soldiers who saw me saluted. I nodded and moved to where my team was. "Where's Wiley?" I asked, heart beating. "We put out a search team for them. They seem to have gone off our radar." "Oh shit," I said point blankly. "Get Ryan and Dan. We leave now." "Sir, what happened to them? Pam and Wiley? Hope to God we come back alive to find out. By the way, we're taking this big boy with us," I said, pointing to the hacks. I didn't know what to think at that moment. I was perplexed. Maybe they were caught, but if they were caught, the elders would have placed a penalty on them already. Something didn't sit right. I had to tell the elders of this incident, even though I suspect that they had something to do with it strongly. "You guys prepare yourself for the journey. I'll be back," I said. I knew they had something to do with Wiley and Pam's absence, but I had to seek their help, even if they had a hand in it. I stepped into the council chamber, and deep down I felt like pulling out their heads, but immediately I entered, I went on my knees.
Young man, you've been in the council chamber 3 consecutive times already. What the bloody hell do you want?
One of the elders asked.
Great one. 2 of my teammates were reported missing from duty just this evening. Search droids have gone around, but there's no sign of them, I said. Young man, do we look like we are all-knowing? The case of your teammates isn't one we will consider now. We advise you to take the hacks we'll provide you and your remaining teammates for the mission before we change our minds,
Rayun said. I was scared for the first time in a long time. I didn't want to lose my partners. I fell on my face before them. "Please, I need them for this mission," I pleaded. They looked so calm about the whole situation. I knew something was off.
Hacks 544, escort Mr. Narish out of our presence and make sure that mission is taken care of properly,
Rayun said.
And young man, you have proven to us that you are unworthy of the post we've assigned to you. It'll be a wonder if you make it back alive.
I pondered on Rayun's last words as the hacks escorted me out. "What happened, sir? Why do you have a hacks following you?" Ray asked once he set eyes on me. "Guys,
I don't think Pam and Wiley will be joining us. We're taking a Hacks instead. The whole team was in shock as they prepared. They wondered what was happening, but they had no choice but to obey. They all wore their special spacesuits and prepped themselves for our departure. We were using the wormhole in Sector X, highly prohibited, with a death penalty attached to it if broken. Just as I was about to start the sequence for the wormhole, I noticed the ring Del had given me was missing. I was shocked, but this wasn't the time for any distractions. I punched in the secure pass and waited as the circle-shaped portal door churned to life. This is the first time we'll be setting foot on Earth in 800 years. After we jump, you might experience extreme weakness, but just hold on. It gets even more fucked up, I said as we walked through. Earth. Guys, status report, I yelled as I recovered from the jump. Check, Ray confirmed. Check, Dan confirmed slowly, still recovering. I'm fine, Sarah said, patting her body around just to be sure she was all in one piece. We all felt weak, but looking around I could see the presence of trees and even hear birds chirping. I was shocked to my bones. Thought they said the sun burned out. I saw it myself. Or was that what we were led to believe? Strength was pumped into my body as I sprung up to see more while the others recovered. We didn't get to see much of nature on Padav, so we were dazzled by what we found. Yet the Earth did not look like what I expected it to. I expected the planet to be covered in ice. Destroyed. Hacks, scan the area, see whether you can find anything, I said to our assigned sentient AI. Hacks took the command and began scanning. The others had recovered from the effect of the jump and joined me in wonder of the new discovery. We didn't have birds on Padav. We barely even had an ecosystem.
Unidentified threat within close proximity. Permission to terminate.
The Hacks alerted in its automated tones. The team was confused but alert. There wasn't anything threatening around as far as the eye could see.
Threat about to make strong impact. Permission to terminate.
The Hacks said again, with more urgency. Stand down, Hacks. There's nothing here. For a split second, the whole atmosphere was quiet. Something felt wrong. Hacks, eliminate close threats immediately, I ordered, my eyes darting around for anything out of the ordinary. The team was down in terror as a creature came out of its camouflage and grabbed Ray by the leg. The Hacks immediately reached the creature with unreal speed as it decimated the being. The terror was heavy on the team, and they had the look of curiosity on them. They wanted to know more about what they had just encountered. Hacks, what is that? I asked.
The creature is called a Yara.
What the fuck is a Yara? Dan asked.
The Yaras were the original inhabitants of Padav, before Del made a deal with them which cost us our planet.
Hacks said. Wait. What do you mean, made a deal? My mind was reeling with questions.
The sun was way beyond its half-life and was coming to an end. Del promised the Yaras immense energy from the Earth's core in exchange for their technology. But he couldn't deliver on such a promise, and the Yaras took from the sun itself, draining what was left of it. In the end, the Yaras made a trade, Padav for Earth, and Del took it.
And you know all this how? I asked. You're really going to believe this thing? Sarah looked at me as if I was out of my mind. The Elders have been hiding something. Even the Elders before them. This Yara looks like a child, which means something bigger lurks around.
Threat approaching us in about 20 seconds,
Hacks replied. What is happening, Hacks? Speak to me, I screamed.
Threat level extreme. Permission to exterminate?
The Hacks questioned. Permission granted. The ground began to tremble as another creature dashed out of its hiding and burst into a sprint for me.
Activate suspension glob,
the Hacks said calmly. Immediately, everything within close proximity froze, even the creature. But this particular-looking creature was bigger than the other we'd encountered, and more gruesome-looking. The Hacks moved towards the Yara that was suspended in the air. It took out a blade and stabbed through the crown multiple times.
Deactivate suspension glob,
it said. Everything frozen within a 40-yard radius normalized, and the Yara dropped dead. The team was shocked as to what the Hacks had just done. What did you just do, Hax? I questioned.
I attended to your request, Commander.
The Hax answered. I know that. How did you know its weak point?
Extreme threats approaching in 60 seconds.
The Hax cut in. We knew there wasn't time to chat. We started moving. Would you mind scanning parameter for any energy supply source, Hax? I asked.
Scanning now.
The Hax answered. Ray and Sarah, see if you can get eyes in the air. They both reached into their kit bags, pulled out a little pod, and threw it in the air. The pod deployed as it went high as a drone. Dan, we'll need you to communicate to the station to report our state.
I'm afraid I cannot let you carry on with that order, sir.
The Hax said. I'm sorry? What do you mean? I replied.
The Elders commanded that everything be reported to Dell, not to any other authority. So I'm afraid I will have to block your signal until the Elders deem it fit for me not to.
The Hax said calmly. I knew they had the power to bend matter and recreate matter. Nobody knew anything of why and how they were created, but they were extremely powerful. To fight it would mean death. We kept moving. The Hax had picked up an energy supply source nearby in a mountain. My eyes in the air. What are you picking up? I asked. I spot a herd of the Yaras distant from where we are now, and it seems like they're feeding on something, Ray said. Zoom in and find out what they're feeding on, I commanded. Seems like they're feeding on the Earth, Sarah said in a confused tone as she looked again to confirm what she had just seen. Hax, I think it's about time you started talking. What are the Yaras really doing here, and how do you know so much about them? I asked vehemently. The Hax wasn't allowed to speak about anything outside what the Elders had commanded it to say. We waited in anticipation for an answer, but there was no response from the Hax.
There. I see the mountain which the energy is pulsating from,
the Hax said as it broke the silence. We drew near to the mountain as we noticed a cave which had a lot of Yaras flocking in and out. There was something about the set of Yaras that flocked into the cave. They glowed blue as if they were carrying something into the cave. Hax, I'll need you to have a closer look at the cave and report here, I commanded.
Copy that, sir,
the Hax said as it launched into the sky. I need answers, and I was sure everyone on the team did too. Could that be the source of the signal we received back on Padav? We knew the Elders and even Dell himself were hiding something, and we knew the Hax had answers, but we had to come up with a way to get it to talk. We need to get the Hax to talk before we get in something we don't understand. It's obviously hiding something, Sarah said. Yes, but how do we get it to talk? I mean, it's not like we can force it or anything, Ray added. I think I know of a way. Wiley was working on a chip that would break through any program or wall to get information. He gave one of it to me. I think we can use it, Sarah said. Let's hope it works. We just have to find a way to place it on the Hax, I said. Now that won't be a problem, Sarah said. The Hax had just returned.
Seems like the Yaras are storing the energy that they are harvesting from the Earth's core and saving it in that cave. They might be powering something,
the Hax said. So, what do you think? I asked.
I think whatever they are doing should be stopped. That is why I have already communicated with the Council and they are calling the mission off, because it's beyond your level now,
the Hax added. I beg your pardon. This is my mission, I get to call the shots, I said, letting my voice go wild a bit.
Commander, I'm asking nicely for you and your crew to leave. We will handle this,
the Hax added. Sarah, now! Ray screamed as she placed the chip on the Hax's artificial skin. She had been standing behind it the whole time. It immediately powered down. We gathered round to see what had happened. It began to reboot. The chip had wiped out the encryptions the Elders had placed in it. I knew it could speak without restrictions now. What do you know about these creatures, Hax? I questioned.
They were the original inhabitants of Padav.
Did the sun really burn out? This question would change everything.
No,
Hax said.
But the Padavs wanted humans gone all along, and so they tampered with the sun's core a bit.
What do you mean they tampered with the sun's core? Sarah was nearly hysterical at this moment. The thought of living a lie all along.
All I can say is that they had the technology for it,
Hax replied. So how do we stop them? How do we take back our home?
I'm afraid I can't let you leave this place. You know too much already.
There was silence as the pods in the air picked up alarming signals as the herd of Yara stormed out, moving in our direction. We'd been spotted. "What can we do, hacks?" I yelled.
Unless there's a way to break open the power supply they are draining from the Earth. Also, have this.
The hack said as he handed him the ring Del gave him. Why? Why help us? You said we couldn't leave, so why help us? I asked repeatedly.
The Elders didn't want you to have it. It might come in handy. I'm afraid my encryptions are being placed back by the Elders.
The hack said as it shut down. Guys, gather around, I screamed. As we gathered around, I used the ring to open up a portal to get to the cave. We stepped into it as the Yaras raged towards us. Immediately we appeared, all our gadgets powered down.
You made it. Too bad you won't make it back,
a euphonic voice said from behind us. It was Del, and he seemed to shift back and forth from human to Yara. At this point, he wasn't as great and powerful as we saw him on Padav anymore.
This is the future. You can't do anything, everyone on Padav will die. Humanity will be obsolete,
Del said, as the Yaras around the cave launched at us. They had lost all hope of what to do. There wasn't any way they could survive or even help the people. Our whole life on Padav was a lie. The Yaras were tearing them limb from limb, and I was next. I had only one trick up my sleeve, or rather, my already bleeding arm, but it would kill us all. I could use the ring to create just one drop of antimatter this close to so much energy I could obliterate the whole Earth. Well, nice knowing you, Del! I shrieked as I pulled the cap off the ring, a move Del wasn't expecting. 1, 2, 3. Everything seemed to freeze as if nothing had happened. Then an ear-splitting roar wiped everything into oblivion, closing my eyes forever. And all the truth we learned.
Part 1. Since its dawn, humanity has always reached out for something more. Something that is outside of its grasp. Something alien. And so, since the first seed was planted, the first shelter was built, since the first ashes were caught, and the first wars waged, humanity learned, developed, and adapted. Great philosophers, thinkers, and people who lived in civilizations that took hundreds of years to build were the first ones to think about the truth. They looked up to the skies and started asking themselves, what is up there? So the horrors of the unknown started developing, started emerging, and stories of great divine beings and their servants were born. Tales of great warriors defeating evil, destroying the enemies, and giving life and peace to mere men were proof of one true saga, the saga of fear. For fear and terror, those two horrid feelings that were embedded in us, are the driving force of our own will to conquer anything bestowed upon us. And so, with fear and terror driving us so far into development, we have run out of space. Humanity has truly used all that was given to it, and now the time for a change has come. Humanity shall not take any more, shall not ask and beg for mere gifts, charity, and aims, but it shall take what it wants. It shall win what it always should have had, should have owned it. And so, as civilized man grew and expanded, the need for conquering outer space was becoming bigger and bigger. Thus, a small team and an operation were to be founded. It consisted of 6 members,
each one with a skill set that could be used in any given moment and situation. Experienced warriors, mathematicians, scientists, and all in all, extraordinary, elite specimens of humanity. This team, a group that shall challenge the course of human history, was named Omega OEC, standing for Outer Expedition Crew. Omega was founded by Beric Fellingson, a military general well decorated, alongside Marjorie and Joey Gray, a married pair known for their contribution in the fields of physics, biology, and genetics. A few years before the creation of the Omega OEC, the pair was controversial for its infamous human testing that was never proven as a factum. On the other hand, their partner, whom they had known for years, Beric Fellingson, was never a liked public figure due to his ruthlessness and brutality. In the beginning, the Omega OEC was to be filled with hundreds of qualified and educated members. Yet, as the importance of its crew grew to be global level, it was to be filled with only a few qualified and educated members. A choice that shall be regretted in the near future. Part 2. The decision was made. The Omega crew was to be made up of only a few capable people and equipped with a highly advanced rocket system that did not take much to be worked with. The crew leader was appointed by Beric Fellingson himself. He named Jason Bellstone, his trustworthy special ops colleague, who is yet 20 years younger than him, as the Omega crew leader. Jason Bellstone was born into a low-class family and worked his way up to anything throughout his life. He is remarkably intelligent, strong, and experienced. But what came in the days of his stay on the planet Mars was something no one could prepare him and his crew for. The Omega OEC arrived on Mars on August the 9th. They had been traveling for quite some time, and the arrival was satisfactory. The crew consisted of Jason Bellstone, physicist and ex-military, Daryl Ontegro, biologist and zoologist, Marina Williams, Dr. Harold Limes, ex-Navy SEAL, Nurse Ashley Light, and one of the most important physicists and scientists ever alive, Harvey Johnson. These were the 6 unfortunate members of the crew that shall mark a scar on humanity for its entire existence, if it gets any further. The field was ready to be researched, and in future years developed. The official task assigned to the crew was researching and inputting in the database anything found on planet Mars. This mission was to be completed in 160 days. The goal is to make sure that the planet is habitable for human beings, safe and completely free of any toxic substances, dangerous diseases, and unknown, hostile life. Part 3. The surface was orange. The soil was dim, hard to decipher its true form. The sky is dark, and the weather is freezingly cold, without the suits the crew was provided with. The weather was the first unfriendly, unwelcoming, and forbidding factor that demoralized the crew. It was the numbing, piercing frost that could be felt even with the suits on, for it was not the unusual coldness that one may feel on Earth, but a coldness you could see, and without even feeling it, a coldness so sharp and bitter that you would know it's there. The crew hated it, but one thing they started hating more during their first hours out of the base was the blunt silence, the deafening tranquility. So peaceful and calm at first glance, became eerie and horrid after only a few hours. It was rather manageable during the day, as the entire crew spoke with one another during their first walk around the rocket and the base, their first check-in. But the night was when things got horribly out of control. For after hours of silent nature, our own brains make up sounds, just so we may stay sane. Thus we shall hear as our blood travels throughout our veins in our ears. We can hear our bassy heartbeats going. And it would eventually make us lose our minds. Completely. This is a fact known by each member of the group.
Yet knowing how a poison works does not mean we are immune to it. And so when the sound started, no one could truly tell if what they were hearing was something that lurks out there in the shadows, or if it's their body giving in. The first night was strange and uncanny, but the pure tiredness surpassed the feelings of fear at a certain point, for their bodies went limp. Part 4. It was the next day when the true research had begun. Marina Williams was the most excited out of the entire crew. She is well known for her contribution to the biology world, which is a field so vast that many do not ever grasp hold of its entirety. Yet this highly intelligent woman is one of the most revolutionary biologists to live. She was always fascinated in the unknown, and with what lives beyond the Earth's orbit. So, they stepped one after the other on the soil. Daryl Ontegro was the second one in line. He is tasked with security, alongside Ashley Light. Yet the two possess serious knowledge in the fields of medicine and physics. Better knowledge than the majority of the world, that is. Harold Limes is a genius doctor that was just in front of their crew leader, Jason, alongside Harvey Johnson, who could not stop talking about his personal attachment to the task he was assigned with. The truth is that Jason was the Omega OEC leader, yet Harvey Johnson was the one assigned with controlling everything that gets discovered and inputting its information into the database. If the Omega crew was to fail during an unfortunate event, Harvey is the one that should be saved. At least that is what was ordered before the initial launch. The crew was exploring the territory for a few hours. It did not seem as much. Soil samples, air dexterity, and textures were taken. Humidity and temperature were tested in different locations, and the results were all as expected. Nothing stood out, and Mars seemed boring as they thought it would be. For no member of the crew really expected anything grand or out of the ordinary. They are, after all, a security test, and thus they returned to the base that night. Mars had a different effect on their bodies, which seemed more worn out, but it did not cause them any additional worries. It was time for a rest, again. The night seemed normal as everyone lay in their separate rooms. They felt as if they had already gotten used to the strange silence that was in the air, even when they were talking. For if there was something there, no one of the 6 could explain it. Something that made them tired, uneasy, and uncomfortable. It could not be touched, but it was there. Perhaps it was the change of scenery, or the change of a planet, something that no one endured before them. But it was something. Harold was the first one to experience that something when it woke him up. Colors and shapes started to appear in front of him, as if a dream wanted to form. But no, in that silent, blunt, and entirely black room, something was wrong. The weird layout of the room did not make it any better. He turned his head around as he started to sweat, trying to see where the strange noise was coming from. For there was something that made it. It was a dull noise you could smell better than you could hear it, but it certainly was a noise. It appeared in such silence, so Harold could feel his eardrums getting tenser and tenser, to the point of him hearing a quiet heartbeat within him. And then, out of the darkness, something loud rapidly passed by on the outside. He knew that it was there. He knew something was outside. Thus, he turned on his lamp and stood out of his bed. The rooms they slept in were highly isolated and protected from the outside, thus having no windows. They knew they are not supposed to leave them at night, for everyone is sleeping. Yet Dr. Harold seemed to forget that. And so, he left his room into the dark abyss-like hallway. Long and unwelcoming. It felt strange and alien. But there was still something out there. As he stepped out of his room, he could see a glimpse of light coming through the window, on his left side. He walked towards it, quietly. And with each step, it was closer. The closer he got, the more fear crept in. and the more he realized the danger of the situation he put himself into. Yet, there was something there, lurking behind that thick panel of glass. Yet, he had to see it, examine it. As he stepped towards it, he could clearly see it. Out there, in the never-ending desert-like mist of the red planet, now embraced by the tint of darkness, stood a thing. Something unexplainable to the doctor. A man who had seen what generations have not, yet unexplainable. A pair of dot-like eyes, yellow and creepy, horrifyingly organized to a glob, into a cloud of evil. A staring thing, out there, yet so far away, yet so close. Part 5. The morning came, and the ones that lurked where they should not have forgotten almost everything. The reality of his encounter was totally erased from the memory of Dr. Harold Limes, yet he knew, for it was somewhere in the back of his head, that something had happened. He chooses not to talk about it, and so the Omega crew started their first proper workday. It was in the very first hours that they had trekked over much lands. Once again, they did not expect much, other than the scenery they were already getting used to. The one person that sunk in his thoughts was Harold, who was slowly letting himself go into the lie that what happened last night was just a bad, strange dream. Something stopped their boredom, though. Harvey Johnson, who was in the middle of the crew lineup, invented a supersonic scanner 10 years prior to the expedition he is a part of now. The same instrument, just upgraded, was with him on this very expedition, and in a fragment of a second, it picked up a signal. The sharp, loud beep glazed everyone's eardrums. There was something there, and the only place it would be was underground. Something they have exactly been searching for. Jason and Daryl started digging immediately. The entire crew set up for their tasks in case something was found underground. It did not take much to hit a hard structure, buried just about a few inches below the surface. The hard, grainy rock hid from sight. What they found on that day changed their lives in ways no one could have predicted. They took the rugged fossil into their base. It weighed about 10 pounds and was cube-like, 1 meter in diameter on all sides. It seemed like it was engraved with undecipherable inscriptions, symbols hardly understandable even to the best linguists. One thing was certain. This was a strange object that should immediately be shipped to Earth for further examination. Yet Harvey took much interest in it, and as they observed it with him, slowly but surely, yellow dots started to appear. They glowed stronger and stronger as each minute passed by, and as they started to gain fluorescent strength, the entire crew, except Harvey, whose amazement grew, until it was interrupted. Marina, Daryl, and Ashley all agreed upon the decision to quarantine this new discovery, for it definitely was not a dead fossil as they had first thought. Harold did not say anything as he stood there, watching and glaring in absolute awe. A few moments later, Jason agreed with them. And so, with 4 votes against 1, the fossil was to be quarantined in a special, disclosed area of the base, and was not to be touched or researched until further notice. Little did they know, the time for that kind of a decision had passed far earlier. After having dinner, the crew laid to rest. The nights kept getting more similar to the ones back on Earth, thus making the entire Omega crew more relaxed and carefree. A few hours into his sleep, this time Jason himself was awakened. But what woke Jason up were no walking and trekking sounds. What woke him up was something never heard before by the human species. For Dr. Harold's visions of the night before may be explainable by mere logic and simple reasoning. Yet, the voices, so dull and empty, yet with a tone to them, quite remarkably unexplainable. They spoke in something that could only be interpreted as a dialect, but in an alien tongue. Something unusual and never heard before. Jason heard this all the way from his bed, and in those few moments of deciding if it's real or fake, he stood up, turned on the lights, and made his choice. There was something out there. His steps were too light for a person of his build. He took them slow and steady, leaning his head in the direction from which the sound had been coming. He slowly opened the thick safety door of his room, which was conveniently smooth and silent. The sound could be heard twice as loud at this stage, and he was certain that something was making those unorthodox noises. They sounded like cat calls. They hissed and spewed around, but in such an organized manner, in such a tone, and with a balance of that which we associate with animals, and that which we find human-like. And so, he kept going onwards, getting closer to the source of the sound with each step. Fear slowly bewildered his instincts that were hardened by more than a few life or death situations. He was a machine, ready to react. But something about this very position he found himself in made those instincts mellow down, and Jason was perfectly aware of this, which was the true problem. The night was only getting darker, and the humidity seemed to have risen. Balls of sweat started to appear on Jason Bellstone's forehead, and his breathing got heavier and heavier. His eardrums felt burned out, and started producing a high-pitched noise within his head. The sense of uncertainty grew more and more as his mind remembered that he was not at home, but somewhere else. Those unfamiliar noises seemed more aggressive with each step he took, and what eventually stopped them was a human scream. Part 6. He ran up to the room where he thought the scream took place. It was the quarantine room, where the fossil that was found earlier that day was placed. Once he found himself in front of the thick, triple-layer glass of the quarantine room, all that he could see was a pond of rich, shiny, red blood on the table. It stood there, still expanding its limits, under the blinking, dim, white light that was clearly damaged as well. There was nothing else to see, except the tarnished operation room. There was no fossil, and there was no whoever's blood that was. Jason just stood there, as fear crept up into his veins. He stood there in the darkness, all alone, feeling the humid coldness of the air kiss his skin. The long, empty black hallway on both of his sides could hide anything and everything, including whatever did this. His senses are lost, and his mind is going in places which it had not been for years. But as he collected himself, and as nothing horrible had happened to him yet, he raised an alarm. In a matter of minutes, the Omega crew got together. The lights were on, the air filter was turned on, and the senseless feeling of loneliness and danger was dead. But something else emerged. The overwhelming chaos took some time to itself before everyone realized what had truly happened. The blood on the table that lay just a glass panel away from them indicated that someone was hurt. But it was only after a few panic-induced sentences that they realized Marina Williams was missing. And the fact was proven to be true after a detailed search of the base was done. Before they knew it, morning dawn had come, and the time for grand decisions was there. Not only was the crew angry, but that poisonous feeling was aimed especially towards Harvey Johnson for specifically wanting to keep the fossil. Jason kept his thoughts to himself, but as everyone slowly sewed together a plan, he spontaneously agreed. To his demise, Harvey Johnson, who they blamed for the incident, was placed on the front line of danger. The plan was as follows. Harvey is to exit the base and do a simple inspection around it to examine if everything is as it should be. He shall search the base and the ship for contamination, and after which he shall return and the Omega crew will immediately go back to Earth, without Marina, who is now presumed dead. This entire mission will be watched by the crew back in the Overlook room. Jason agreed to this without any hesitation. This plan placed another member's life in danger, but the search of the base had to be done. It was better to put one person in danger than all of them. Plans like this were supposed to be direct back to Earth, but the main problem was the signal disruption the base had been getting all night, and the second problem was that the crew in charge on Earth would never agree to said plan. After all the preparations, Harvey was ready to step out, in his thick, protected spacesuit. He waited for the giant doors to open. This time, he was all alone. A gust of wind stumbled onto the white surface of the floor as the doors opened and exposed the entire base to the vast outside. That could, at this point, hide anything in its gaping jaws. The red planet came into his view, an auburn haze that ignited his sense of recklessness, death-driven fear. He stepped out, and the soil jumped in the air due to his weight pressing down on it. The heavy door behind him slowly but loudly closed, and the steel scream they made let Harvey know the time for turning around was over. All there was now was him and this endless orange desert that certainly hid things unexplainable to mere men. His steps were slow at first. He did not know where to go. It was purebred fear that fueled his every breath as he just turned his head around, waiting for something to be beside him. For the thick spacesuit covered much of his corner view, limiting his sight to what was only in front of him. He decided to turn to the left side of the ship and make a lookout there first. He walked slowly, as quietly as possible, but the breath that came out of his air filters was too loud, deafening anything that would try to sneak up on him. He slowly bobbed his way to the shiny base wall, with the orange rocks cracking beneath his feet. The shadows of the dim light seemed so full and vibrant at once, as he was all alone out there. The vast space, peaceful yet unpredictable, could hide so much good and so much evil. His senses rose, alerted and disturbed. The goal of his task at a point became just something to walk towards, and nothing else. He finally came to the curving point of the base, when he saw it. A thing he could never resist. Yet if someone had told him about it, he would strongly advise resisting it. It was a hole that went deep into the ground, but was dug magnificently. So intriguing that he did not know if it was beautiful or horrifying. It was dug in a mathematical order, geometrically, so impossible. Twists and ends where they should not be, peaks and sharp edges on soft and dull surfaces, and it all, slowly, like a nightmarish staircase, ascended into the depths. In complete awe and complete captivation, Harvey went down there, slow and steady, without a blink of his eye, even when the salty sweat drop touched his eyes. His breathing was heavy and uncontrolled, his heartbeat fast and unsafe. Yet none of this mattered, for he is coming down, and he can feel it. He can feel something so strange and alien to him, something that attracts him and fuels his body with unusual energy. Crystals of blue color lit up on the walls of the tunnel he was going through. They looked menacing and exotic, poisonous in a way. But there was an opening he could see, as that was the only radical thinking done at that point. The only thing he surely knew was that it is coming. Something big is coming at the end of this tunnel. A large beast, swarming with cloudy shapes. Its body unimaginable. Sharp, yet dim. So strong and malevolent, something no mere man could ever resist. Darkness surrounded him from all sides. Something behind him, and something in front of him. And whatever it was not human. It was not supposed to be there. The last thing Harvey Johnson saw was a bright light. Part 7. After some hours had passed by, what was left of the Omega OEC presumed Harvey Johnson dead. Truth be told, they were not too sad about his death, as fear was what they were most afraid of. And so, Jason Bellstone, Daryl Ontegro, Harold Limes, and Ashley Light were the only ones left out of the human race on planet Mars. The final order made by Jason Bellstone was the departure of the main ship, for which the initial preparations will have to be made, and will take a few hours. The crew agreed not to separate themselves anymore, but speed is vital. They knew there was something seriously dangerous out there, so their nerves were weak and thin. It was a ticking clock of pending doom that made each second more horrifying. As they got closer to the actual escape, the chances of a disaster grew larger and larger, as something was bound to happen. And so it did. At the worst time, in the worst possible place. The base hub. The hub was a place where all the generators were, and thus where all the power that fueled the system came from. Before the launch of the spaceship itself, it was obligatory to turn off the generators due to the possibility of overheating. The entire crew agreed to do the task together. The room was beautifully lit up. The ceiling had long, bright white lights all across, and the giant, high-quality generators were lit up to the point of every single light. Everyone was together, and the huge size of the room made them feel safe and strong. But some things are not what they always seem. The full sense of security loosened them up, and so each of them took a generator. It did not take long for things to go south. In a fragment of a second, in that one historic moment that changed the path humanity will head, the lights turned off. And just like that, the open space that once granted security could now be the source of anything. Just like that, what once was a group is now spaced together, meters apart. Suddenly, the thing that had already taken two of them appeared in their midst. Jason could hear Harold Limes screaming in pain and agony, so loud and sharp as he could also hear his body slowly cracking and die off until there was nothing left but echoes. Echoes were the only living thing about his body, which was already dead by now. The group then went silent, as each of the live members wanted to survive, making the situation even more isolated for them. It was pitch black, and even though they were in the same room, each of them was in their own, terror-filled world. Ashley Light was scared to death, standing still and sweating. The only thing that visibly moved on her was her hair, which was pointing directly up. She tried as hard as possible not to make a move. Daryl Ontegro prayed, for it was not that he was a great believer, but it was the fact that he had reasoned with his upcoming death. And Jason? He slowly, as quiet as possible, started walking towards the escape door, which was, as he remembers, only a few meters away. They could hear it. Other than their heartbeats, the thing amongst them. The giant terror-infusing evil, while it moved its body throughout the room. And Jason, with every step, risked it being behind him. Yet this was a risk worth taking in his mind. step by step. He was closer and closer, and his breathing got heavier and heavier as adrenaline started rushing and fueling his body and his brain. And then, a man screamed. A man no other than Daryl. It was a short-lived, loud, and painful scream. One of those screams that gives a sore throat. Jason escaped the room, followed by Ashley. They were now running together, throughout the darkness of the base, disoriented and fearful for their lives. In absolute agony and fear, they heard how the alien sounds, as if it was chasing them like prey. Them and their little bodies, hunting them in a manner like it is a sport. Yet they, as some rodents, were fighting for their lives. They finally reached the narrow staircase that led to the spaceship, and as they jumped stairs and ran up to it as fast as they could, the beast got stuck in the narrow passage, and finally stopped. Perhaps it took another way out, or it just left for no reason. But they never heard from it again. All that could be heard in their cabin, other than the powerful engines and the system turning on, were their weeps. Warrior tears and sweat had fallen that day, and Mars was to be visited by yet some other crew that will know what awaits them this time. Until then, what was left of the Omega OEC stays on Earth, where they belonged, where their home is.
I hover in the overwhelming pressure of the Pacific Ocean. Nothing feels better than being underwater. It's quiet, peaceful, and I think that silence is the secret to life. Sometimes it's best to see nothing at all and just appreciate the moment.
Oliver, you done sightseeing?
Liam's voice cut through the prior silence of his speakers. I grunt at my partner Liam.
Just give my prayers to the sea gods, you know? Boy, you're crazy.
Maybe I am, but our mission is way more fun and crazier. This science group hired me and Liam to help with uncovering these ruins off the coast of Indonesia. Called the Poseidon Project, it's a dive into a newly uncovered civilization that has never been seen before. My pal Liam and I were divers for a living. I was excited to be participating in this. It's way more exciting than teaching diving lessons to old people. What I did not expect was the TV crew, but the leader of the operation, Mr. Ashbury, wants to document this amazing discovery as much as he wants to uncover it. Obviously, it pays for a part of the excursion, so I cannot complain. I swim over the grass, popping out of the crevices and corals. These blades of grass wave at me in their strong current. I stop over the darkness that digs into the earth, revealing the 5-mile ravine crossing this part of the sea's bed. The cameras move on long arms and toward the edge of tomorrow under the control of the operator. They have fog lights and have been a great help in cutting through a path for us. Liam dives under me and over the edge. The fog light blasts into the ravine and Liam slithers down it. My flashlight is on my arm sleeve and can barely reach further than several feet, but it is still useful. This forgotten civilization reveals itself through the husks of the buildings that cross the length of the sandy floor. These buildings are so different, like some strange cubic painting. They shift from the odd circular impressions that seep into the metal to the larger bastion constructions with sculptures of animal craft within. The most amazing thing is that these were not built with stone, but metal. And not just any metal. It is titanium, and Mr. Ashbury dated them to the time of 1200 BC. This is truly a one-of-a-kind discovery, for titanium was not mined in those times, much less used as a building material, especially to the extent that this ancient city was built up. We shouldn't have even found this place. but it was tucked away nicely and neatly out of sight in the dark depths of this ravine. I dip into those shadows and let them overcome me. My light glows and reveals my steps into the streets of this place. Ashbury cannot tell us who built this city yet, but we're gonna find out for sure.
Hey, you see the tower?
I look up as I bounce into the circle. Unknown symbols circle the length of it, while the center column is a huge rectangular prism. It is laden with deep impressions of a language we know little about. Under the tower is a huge enclave of rock where much of this mysterious city has fallen into. Many sections of it have been sent to various parts of the ravine, and it is hard to piece much of it together with its instability. Liam stands under the shadow of the tower.
You see this?
Looks amazing. Bring the camera around. Record this. I'll collect the artifacts. We get to work doing our various tasks. I pick up vases, jars, and sharp instruments like spears, many of which are broken. These weapons are quite intricate in their design, with symbols in an amber tint. An oscillating sound buzzes through my speaker. I blink in surprise and turn around to watch the darkness. Something made that sound. But what was it? There isn't anyone here except the diving team and a random tuna fish shooting past me. I hear the distant cracks of the steps we make, but the oscillating screech phases in and out of my earshot like some symphony. My eyes catch sight of a twinkling light in the darkness. What is that? My feet move on their own. I turn up the power of the flashlight. It reveals a room that collapsed in upon itself with deep lines breaking out from the center. The center holds a stone pillar. My body shivered from the frigid atmosphere that hit me. It was tough for me. Around that pillar are spheres engraved with strange inscriptions. I touch the pillar and see the dust transfer onto my glove.
Hey, are you done?
Liam's voice buzzes into my speaker. I reach down and grab two metallic-like spheres. Yeah, let me wrap these up. Once we're done, we swim out of the dark corridors of this place. We reach the base complex, which is partially under the sea. I swim up into the diving platform. Liam comes out behind me and pulls off his mask to gasp.
Oof, glad to be back.
I stroke to the edge and pull myself out. My gear is taken off in the changing room as the camera's trolley moves up the platform and breaks the water's roof. The crew disperses through different areas of the base after they clear the artifacts from the carriage bay. We go below deck together to grab some refreshments. Everywhere I go, these cameras be following me. I punch Liam, my co-star, and pal on the shoulder. On cue, the camera team roll in ready to detail our conversation, which makes me wonder if this is all necessary. Recording while we're swimming around the remnants of the fallen civilization is one thing, but these guys are pressing us even when we're relaxing. The only alone time I can get is in my bedroom, and that's not much. He laughs and scratches the back of his head.
It's whatever. I don't give a damn about all that. I just want to hit the water. After this, who knows? We might become famous.
It won't be us people will be talking about. It'll go hard for those conspiracy believers out there, and we'll be paid a ton of money if we can keep this on the air.
Oh yeah? Ain't gonna lie. The city could never be built by humans. You see those metal streets? It has to be extraterrestrials.
I'm not sure if that is true, but a part of me will not be surprised if it is. Looking at the civilization, the scale and extravagance it was built with far exceeded any ancient civilization on this earth. I wondered how they ended up at the bottom of the sea. How did their city fall apart like that? The metal streets should be impossible to break. There are a lot of unanswered questions. Ashbury's theory is that an earthquake or tsunami hit their paradise island. Whether it was the lost city of Atlantis or something entirely different, Ashbury wasn't sure. All he could say was that it was most likely a powerful city-state. He even said that it may have been this civilization that was infamously called the Sea People, that was notorious for the destruction of the Hittite and Assyrian empires. Though that legend indicated humans, specifically the people of Egypt, defeated them. Who knows what happened? I'm going to sleep.
All right. See you later.
He nods his head, taking a sip of his soda. I go to my bedroom and sleep for an hour before loud knocking shakes me out of my sleep. When I open the door, I see Liam.
Hey, Ashbury's calling for you. You got to check this out. Something you brought back might have hit the jackpot.
Which pottery could I have brought back that got him hot and bothered? As I'm about to find out, it is the metallic-looking balls, and they're glowing on the table when I enter the room. The pretty average-looking dude in a t-shirt and shorts is Mike Ashbury. His hair is long and straight, brushing his neck. He's got a brown and gray Hulk Hogan mustache, just not the Hulk Hogan body type. He says, "Took you long enough. Where'd you find this?" He waves at the cameraman and they come closer, so he made sure that they do not miss this moment. It felt impersonal to me. It was a room that was some distance away from the ritual circle. Thinking about it now, the thing that I remember the most was how cold it was. Other than that, it looks like many of the rooms we saw in the houses and buildings. Nothing special. Ashbury nods his head as he turns back to the spheres. The light that is glowing comes from the inner impressions carving inside of it. "Were they glowing like this when you found them?" he asks. Hell no. I'm still wondering myself what this is about. Maybe the paint inside the grooves is affected by the open air. Maybe. I'm gonna do some analysis on it. Are you willing to go out and check that place again? Like right now? His lips curled into a smile. Yes, the crew wants to see the place. They never got any footage of the site where you've gotten them from. I was too mesmerized by the place to even remember them. But more than that, a part of me was wary of bringing them there. Something about that place really strikes an uncompromising chord with me. I pointed the glowing balls. What do you think they are? Ashbury says, "Not sure." We didn't have to wait long to see what it really was, for the inscriptions stopped glowing. Everyone stares at it. That is when that oscillating sound penetrates my consciousness. I suddenly felt that I do not want to be here anymore. All right, tell the camera crew to saddle up. I'm leaving in 5 minutes. I spin out of the room and my stomach starts lurching, but I push down the developing bile. The sickness that is plaguing me hurts my head, but I keep moving. I go below the base and swim up to a sliding door attached to the underbelly of the vessel. It creaks open, and we swim down into the chamber. We went from the base and into the ravine. I lead the way with the camera close behind, then I move from the ritual circle to the hidden enclave. As soon as I step in, the cold arrests my limbs. My diving suit is not doing a good job of protecting me right now. The camera's fog light blasts behind me. I can see this room more clearly now. My eyes widen to see those paintings high on the roof. Figures, animalistic in form, coat the surface. Whoever these people were, they loved their animals. I tilt my head and mutter, "Hold up." I glide across the dusty divide and reach a door that is barely seen, for it lays behind a large column and lingers off the edge of a deeper drop. My hand presses into a hole, and I pull the large door open as if it is on a slide. It creaks open, and the ocean floor seems to split apart. I walk into a new room with a transparent roof. The transparent roof has an ice-like structure, but if I am to take a guess, I'd say that it is stronger than any ice that has ever existed. And that's not even the worst part. There are strange statues and paintings of these odd-looking figures doing various activities. Some figures look like they are tilling the land, while others are at war with paintings that look like us humans. This is bewildering. A haunting, scraping sound echoes throughout this space. I hear yelps from the cameraman behind me. My eyes narrow and flick around. My mind and body detach for a moment, and I forget that I am standing in a decrepit city. The memories in that city are not dead historical references as I thought. When that oscillating sound hits me again, my eyes almost close and I do not catch the shadow in front of me. I drift back in surprise. A tall creature with lanky arms hovers toward me. My heart stops, and my chest bursts in congestion. I freeze, unsure of what to do. Is this some kind of sea creature? As it moved toward the center of the room, I witnessed its horrendous glory. Its movements are slower and ghost-like, but there's no mistake. This is in fact the strange figure in the paintings on the wall. The hand has web-like suckers gesturing toward me. It reminds me of the tentacles of an octopus. Then that arm shoots over my head. I spin around to see the cameraman rising up as that arm wraps around his neck and chokes him. The camera arm falls over and hits the ground. Breaking glass and the resounding thud of metal shakes me out of my insanity. My heart hasn't been suffocated yet, so between it and my brain, they're the only thing I care about. It pounds beneath my skin. I never swam so fast in my life. Streams of the sea flow around me in aggression as bubbles swept up from my breaststroke. Those bubbles do not hide the shapes around me. Figures are swimming up and surround me. My chest beats with a blasting tempo. There is a myriad of these creatures, and some face one direction as they surround the base. Lines appear on the ocean floor. Those lines, I realize, are cracks. The wider the cracks expand, the louder the oscillating noise, until something akin to thunder ripples the water. It is from these cracks that these strange creatures swim out from. I do not look back, and keep going toward the goal. The waves of the sea push out from my stroke. They become mere dots to me. The faster they pass by me, the better. It's surprising how quickly I reach the complex, despite how slowly they're moving. It's like there's a magnetic source pulling me in. The closer I get, the more my body swells with pressure and heat. I need to warn them. With my arms still free, I grab hold of the ladder leading up the tunnel. It is close now. All I have to do is get up the chamber. I'm not sure, but it's my only hope. Clutching onto grooves inside the bar, despite it tearing into the tips of my fingers, I close my eyes and wish for a miracle. But despair hits me when my fingers rip off and go back down into the water. Arms wrap around me. I try to escape. My lower half stretches and my back pulls apart. The helmet cracks, gritting my teeth as my tears find a home in the salt water. I use every last bit of strength I have to keep hanging on. My shoulders push outward and break the hold on me. I swim up and grab the bar again. The surface is as slippery as hell now. Water spews through the cracks in the helmet's glass and hits me in the nose. It's a struggle just trying to not let go. Pressing my lips together and filling my cheeks up with air, I strain against the defeat quickly approaching. The middle of my hand tingles, and my heart plummets. This is it. I can't hold on any longer. A cry shatters my peace before I shoot up out of the water and onto the platform's metal-glazed floor. I gasp and with a start pull off my helmet. That's when I sit up, and that ugly creature surges out of the sea. In the glare of the lights above me, its eyes are dark blue, but with the head of a meat-eating carnivore. I am not staying here to say hi. It growls at me. My oxygen tank is thrown off. I run out of the room and turn the metal door into its face. The door shakes from the force of its ram and sent me to the ground. I drop to the ground and glare up in surprise at the door vibrating from that wild beast's vigorous attempt to kill me. Ashbury. I need to get to him. I shout, "Help!" There is no reply. The underwater base is not that big. They should have heard me. I walk away from that door and try to find any of the other workers. That is when I notice how silent this place is. Where is everyone? I swallow my fear and keep going. The further I go, the more water I tread. This place is taking on so much water. I need to get out of here, but not without the others, and definitely not the way I came through. Ashbury is the first person I'm going to, so seeing anyone else will be nice, but unnecessary. So I go to his last known location, to find the hall leading to that room in a mess. A mangled crust of the metal door and broken shards of metal lay on the floor. At this point, I don't know if I should be afraid or not. My heart blasts in my head a sound worthy of a cruel melody. I step forward regardless. When I reach around the bend, I see blood. A lot of it. But nobody is in there. Not even those balls with their strange inscriptions are here. I don't like this at all. Leaving that room, I turn into the opposite end of the hall and see the blood trail. I can use that. Following it is easy enough, but the surrounding screeches and groans of this failing base make me more anxious. Every step I take, the louder they get. It's like those things are trying to break in. I need to get out of here long before that. The blood trail ends up being quite important, for as soon as I turn around a door, my eyes lock onto a sight that stops my heart. Ashbury is lying against the wall with a bloody wound along his neck. "Ashbury!" I rush to him.
"You came back,"
he says weakly. "Who did this to you?"
"You tell me. I don't know what it was. It broke into the base and attacked us. I can say one thing about that creature. It wants those artifacts you brought in. They took one. Liam has the last one."
"Why would they want that?" Ashbury groans as he stands up.
"Only one way to find out."
We get out of that room and hear a loud screech. It was a loud and creaking groan, so Ashbury and I froze in the hall. We try to make no sound, but that is hard with Ashbury's restrained breaths and the drips of water from my scuba suit. Nothing comes out of the dark corners of this place, and we continue on our way. Light flickers as we make soft but hurried steps. I look behind every open door to make sure we don't get a surprise, because those unnerving sounds are too close to us. We move quickly to the highest chamber to avoid the rising water. That is where we see Liam standing on a glass floor over what is the drop chamber, which happens to be one of our exits. The underground base rolls as the increasing supply of water destabilizes it. This is not good, as I slide from side to side. My hands push against the wall to prevent myself from tumbling over. The growls we hear are not from a dog, that is for sure. I shout, "Liam!" Liam turns to us, and that is when I see the ball in his hand. The floor shakes under him when something hits it. That oscillating sound hits me again. It makes me blink, but I shake my head and throw it off.
Get out of here!
Liam shouts, "I'm not leaving you. Come on, walk to us." Liam gestures toward us. We turn around and look up at the overpowering height of this creature. What kind of nightmare did I drop into? This one pushes me over and smacks Ashbury. Ashbury crashes into the wall and falls to the ground. Blood seeps from his head. The base's destabilization gets worse. My head slams against the wall with every turn. The lights spark and blink before going out. Liam cries out, but I can't see him. I want to tell him to run, but my tongue twists. If I try to speak right now, I will bite my own tongue off. I know it. Keeping my hands above my head, I try to steady myself and secure my neck. I pretend I'm just rolling in a barrel, a hard barrel that keeps slamming. My brain knocks loose. I feel something trickle from my nose. It was blood. After what seems like a lifetime, the underground bass stops rolling. There's a ringing in my ears. I can't tell which way is up or down as I scramble around to find my feet. My hand is wet with something sticky, and I already know what it is. Liam? My voice shakes as I crawl up, trying to find my way through this annoying place. The pipes are loose and cracks form along the wall. When I do manage to get up, I slip and slide forward, skidding on my heels.
Leave me alone! Let me go! Shit! Let me go!
That is when I see that monster holding up Liam by the throat. "Liam!" I gasp. "Liam! Buddy!"
What the hell is this thing?
He spits in the creature's face. I get up and rush with difficulty through the slanting hall.
Help! Help! Oh, shit!
He screams.
Oliver, help me!
Liam! A snap stops my heart, legs, and hope. My eyes widen as the creature drops Liam to the ground. It turns around with the ball in hand and its eyes glaring through me. A blue light floods the hall. Water blasts through the wall and soaks the hall. Liam's face streams lines of blood, and he keeps sputtering even with his neck broken by this murdering beast. The creature's free hand twirls as it gestures at us. Rage ensues me as the raising water grips at my knees and threatens to drown my stupid desire for revenge. Ashbury groans before easing himself up on his hands. He blinks once, twice, before focusing on everything. His eyes widen. We're in deep shit. I can't fight this thing, and as it turns away from me and nestles that ball, no, that egg in its bosom. It is clear it's not interested with us anymore. Ashbury's and my safety is paramount right now. You must have some extra diving gear somewhere in here, don't you? If the base is prepped for attacks, you have to be prepped for survival, too, I ask. You're right. We do. Mike attempts to stand before crying out in pain. I think my left leg's broken. The haunting scraping sound echoes as I help Ashbury up. We gotta go. The blue light becomes blinding and burns through the walls with a bang. I froze, and that's when a torrent of water smashes apart everything. The water comes at us like a comet. As if in slow motion, my body passes by Liam's. Ashbury gets swept away by the water, and my body slams into something hard before whirling into a tempest. For a moment, I think I might be dead. I blink my eyes and try to be positive about my arms and legs compressing under the weight of my descent. My lips close as the salt burns the back of my throat. Not like this. My lips tight as a sealer has not given up, and I still have some energy left. I can't die here. My heart leaps off a cliff. It leaps up so fast I think it's propelling upward and out of the water. I follow it. With my arms swinging at my side and my legs together, I push up with all my might. I look around me and see them. Those long creatures. It's an army of them. All of them are swimming out from the crux of the collapsing base I once called home. These must be the residents of this forsaken city, and all this time they lived. The footage of these creatures will never see the light of day. They will always remain a mystery. But I am not becoming history like them, so I swim frantically to the top. The warmth of the sun on the water promises me freedom. Stunned and filled with relief, pure adrenaline pushes me to the surface where I burst through with a smile and tears falling down my face. The smile disappears thanks to a wave of gloom when I find that I'm in the literal middle of the ocean. Only the long, complex metal connection lines are left standing, and they are breaking apart right now. Its groans creep me out. The ship we used to get here is nowhere to be found, and I don't want to be in this water for a moment longer and give those freaks a chance to take away my life. There appears to be thousands of miles to the shore. A part of me wished I asked about how far we were, but nobody expected this would happen. Liam is gone, and so is Ashbury. My eyes close in frustration as the memories of them curtail my breathing. I'm exhausted, but there's something to be said about being able to survive underwater. I just need to keep going. If I keep going, I'll get to land faster. It's a mad idea, but what else can I do? Steadying my breathing, I begin paddling as hard as I can. The sun bakes me to a crisp as I tune out all the noise. From the splashes hitting me to the cries of faraway birds flying in way more freedom than myself. I cannot give up, though. It's dark out now. My body gets heavy. When I get to the shore, I'm going to have to figure out what was going on, just after I tell everyone what the hell happened to Liam and the film crew. I'm starting to sound like a crazy person, repeating all the things I saw in my head. Just keep going. Just keep swimming. I'll get there soon. Soon. Keep moving forward. Suddenly, pressure wraps around my waist and dangling legs. My heart rises to my throat. They're back for sure. My legs kick faster. The water explodes in my face and my eyes flutter from the mass of blood and darkness. Water crashes into my face and their hands beneath me wrap around my legs. My eyes met the creatures below me. These ones carry metal spears in their tentacle-like arms, while the other arms are trying to drag me to my death. They probably do not want any witnesses. I'm kicking and fighting, panicking. Whatever luck has allowed me to stay in the water this long alive is about to run out. No one, not even an experienced diver such as myself, can survive underwater forever. I use my arms now, like wings, to allow me more pushing power against their pulling. But it's useless. When I look down, I see they're still on the ocean floor, and their long arms stretch like rubber bands, wrapping around me like a spider wrapping me in its web. These scrawny things are strong as hell. Their wrapping hands climb my waist. I pull at their limbs. They circle me like I'm a maypole, only they're not dancing. They're stone-faced, standing still, observing me in fascination as they crack through my bones. My head expands, and my lungs tighten until I'm sure I can't hold my breath in anymore. Reflex prompts me to open my mouth and take in some air. There's nothing but water. It fills me up before filtering out through my nose in tiny bubbles. That's when the pain hits, and it is cruel to my body. My chest is on fire. I blink a few times in shock before my still beating heart impales me. My lungs collapses upon itself. I'm running through my list of regrets. The biggest one, taking this job. A screech shatters my focus as the preceding howling noises rise from the water. I become still, screaming as my body slips deeper into the ocean. I swallow so much water that my brain threatens to explode. My eyeballs bulge and my chest swells alongside my pounding heart. The swelling doesn't stop. My hand reaches toward the darkening light of the sun against the sea's surface. Those fingers of mine close. And so does my hope.
Hey sci-fi horror fans, it's Thomas. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Craving for another scary story? Click on that video on your screen. Until next time everyone, and remember, stay cosmic.